Tonight, we set sail across the Atlantic Ocean during the height of the Spanish Empire. For more than 2 centuries, fleets of massive treasure ships carried unimaginable wealth from the Americas back to Europe. Their cargoes included gold from distant mines, silver from mountain kingdoms, emeralds from South America, pearls from tropical waters, and luxury goods gathered from across a growing global empire. These fleets followed carefully planned routes and traveled under heavy protection. Yet despite every precaution, the sea remained unpredictable. Storms appeared without warning. Pirates hunted valuable cargoes. Enemy nations sought to capture Spain's wealth. And sometimes entire fleets vanished beneath the waves. Tonight, we'll follow the treasure roads that connected the New World to Europe. We'll step aboard mighty Spanish galleons, witness one of the greatest maritime disasters in history, and explore the centuries-long search for lost treasure hidden beneath the ocean floor. Along the way, we'll discover how historians. Part 1. Spain's New World Wealth. The birth of the treasure fleets. As the first light of dawn spreads across the Atlantic Ocean and illuminates the distant horizon with soft shades of gold and silver, we begin our journey during one of the most remarkable periods in maritime history. Long before modern cargo ships crossed the world's oceans carrying containers filled with manufactured goods, vast fleets of sailing vessels connected continents through networks of trade, conquest, exploration, and empire. Among the most famous of these maritime systems was the Spanish treasure fleet, a carefully organized enterprise responsible for transporting enormous quantities of wealth from the Americas to Europe. For more than 2 centuries, these fleets carried cargoes so valuable that they transformed economies, financed wars, built cities, enriched monarchs, and altered the course of global history. Yet before we can follow the treasure ships across dangerous oceans, we must first understand where this wealth came from and why Spain devoted such extraordinary effort to protecting it. Our story begins not at sea, but in the vast territories of the Americas, where the discovery of precious metals created one of the greatest movements of wealth the world had ever seen. Imagine standing upon a hillside in the early 16th century and looking across the expanding Spanish Empire in the Americas. Only a few decades earlier, Europeans possessed limited knowledge of these lands. Now explorers, soldiers, administrators, missionaries, merchants, and settlers are establishing new colonies stretching across enormous distances. The scale of these territories is difficult to comprehend. Vast mountain ranges, dense forests, fertile valleys, deserts, and coastlines become incorporated into an imperial system connecting the Americas with Europe. Yet among all the resources available within these lands, none attracts more attention than precious metals. The discovery of gold initially captures the imagination of both explorers and rulers. Stories of wealthy kingdoms circulate widely. Expeditions search rivers, valleys, and mountain regions for signs of riches. Some accounts are exaggerated. Others contain elements of truth. Gold appears in various locations, and even modest discoveries generate excitement because the metal possesses immense value. Yet as the decades pass, another resource proves even more significant: silver. High within the mountains of the Americas lie some of the richest silver deposits ever discovered. Imagine miners working at extraordinary altitudes beneath cold skies and rugged peaks. Day after day, they extract ore from deep within the earth. The labor is demanding. Conditions are often difficult. Yet the quantities of silver produced are astonishing. One of the most famous examples emerges from the mountain known as Cerro Rico near the city of Potosí. Rising dramatically above the surrounding landscape, this mountain becomes one of the greatest sources of silver in human history. Its influence extends far beyond the Andes. Coins minted from its metal circulate across continents, linking distant economies through shared commerce. The extraction of precious metals requires complex systems. Mines alone are not enough. Roads must be built, workers must be supplied, or must be processed. Administrative structures oversee production and taxation. Entire communities develop around mining centers. Merchants provide equipment. Farmers produce food. Craftsmen manufacture tools. The resulting economic networks extend across vast regions. Precious metals move from remote interior locations toward coastal ports where ships await. Spain's monarchy quickly recognizes the importance of this wealth. Precious metals strengthen royal finances and support imperial ambitions. They fund military campaigns, government operations, diplomatic initiatives, and construction projects. The flow of silver and gold becomes a central component of imperial strategy. Protecting that flow, therefore, becomes a matter of national importance. Imagine a convoy of pack animals descending mountain roads carrying bars of silver toward a colonial city. Guards accompany the shipment. Officials maintain records documenting quantities and destinations. Every stage of the journey is monitored because the cargo represents tremendous value. Upon reaching major administrative centers, precious metals are collected, inspected, taxed, and prepared for transport. Security measures reflect awareness that theft, corruption, and loss remain constant concerns. Coastal cities emerge as critical nodes within this system. Ports such as Veracruz in New Spain and other major colonial centers serve as gathering points where wealth from interior regions converges. Warehouses fill with cargo awaiting shipment. Merchants negotiate contracts. Officials conduct inspections. Ships arrive and depart according to schedules influenced by weather, politics, and economic conditions. These ports become bustling centers of activity, linking distant mining regions with transatlantic trade routes. The scale of operations continues expanding throughout the 16th century. Precious metals are not the only goods crossing the Atlantic. Agricultural products, manufactured items, luxury commodities, and information also move between continents. Yet gold and silver remain especially important because of their concentrated value. A relatively small cargo can represent enormous wealth. This characteristic makes transportation both attractive and dangerous. As shipments increase, new challenges emerge. Oceans are vast and unpredictable. Individual vessels carrying treasure become tempting targets. Pirates, privateers, and rival powers recognize opportunities presented by valuable cargoes. Storms threaten ships regardless of political circumstances. Navigational errors can produce disasters. Spain therefore faces a crucial question. How can such wealth be transported safely across thousands of miles of ocean? The answer gradually takes shape through experience and adaptation. Rather than allowing treasure ships to travel independently, authorities begin organizing them into coordinated fleets. Multiple vessels sail together under protection. Routes become standardized. Schedules are established. Military escorts accompany merchant ships carrying valuable cargoes. This system offers several advantages. Concentrating resources improves defense. Coordinated planning enhances efficiency. Regular schedules facilitate administration and commerce. The development of the treasure fleet system represents a remarkable achievement in logistics and organization. Imagine officials in Europe and the Americas coordinating departures months in advance. Weather patterns must be considered. Cargoes must be assembled. Crews recruited. Ships maintained. Military protection arranged. Success depends upon cooperation across enormous distances. Communication is slow. Unexpected events are common. Yet the system functions with surprising effectiveness for generations. As morning sunlight brightens the Atlantic and reflects across calm waters, the significance of these developments becomes increasingly clear. The treasure fleets are not simply collections of ships. They are the maritime expression of a vast imperial network linking continents through commerce and administration. Precious metals extracted from distant mountains travel along roads, through cities, into ports, and finally aboard vessels bound for Europe. Every stage involves countless individuals performing specialized roles. The resulting flow of wealth influences economies across the world. The story of the lost gold of the Spanish fleet, therefore, begins with abundance rather than disaster. Before treasure could be lost, it first had to be found, extracted, transported, and organized. The birth of the treasure fleets reflects humanity's ability to create systems capable of moving extraordinary resources across extraordinary distances. Yet every system faces risks, and the oceans awaiting these ships remain as unpredictable as ever. The wealth of an empire is gathering along the shores of the Americas, preparing for journeys that will shape history and, in some cases, end in tragedy beneath the waves. As the morning continues and sunlight spreads across colonial ports crowded with merchants, officials, laborers, and sailors, the treasure fleet system begins taking recognizable form. What started as scattered shipments of precious metals gradually evolves into one of the most sophisticated maritime transportation networks of the early modern world. Spain's rulers understand that wealth alone does not guarantee success. Gold and silver hidden within mountain mines possess little value unless they can be transported safely to markets and mints. The challenge is immense. Oceans separate continents. Communication remains slow. Rivals seek opportunities to intercept valuable cargoes. Yet through organization, planning, and persistence, Spain creates a system capable of moving astonishing quantities of wealth across the Atlantic for generations. Imagine arriving in the bustling colonial city of Veracruz during the height of the treasure fleet era. The harbor is alive with activity. Ships anchor offshore, while smaller boats move between vessels and docks. Warehouses line the waterfront. Officials inspect cargoes. Merchants negotiate prices. Laborers carry crates, barrels, and chests through crowded streets. Everywhere there is movement because the arrival or departure of a fleet affects the entire region. Economic life revolves around these events. Months of preparation culminate in brief periods of intense activity as cargoes are assembled and loaded. The treasure fleets are often described as if they consisted solely of gold and silver, yet the reality is more complex. Precious metals certainly dominate popular imagination, but fleets carry a wide variety of goods. Silver bars, coins, gold artifacts, emeralds, pearls, dyes, spices, tobacco, sugar, and other commodities all contribute to the cargo. Some items possess great monetary value. Others support broader trade networks connecting Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The fleets therefore function as commercial lifelines rather than mere treasure transports. Administrative oversight remains extensive. Spanish authorities establish procedures designed to monitor valuable shipments carefully. Cargoes are recorded. Taxes are collected. Officials verify quantities and ownership. Documentation accompanies shipments throughout their journeys. These measures serve multiple purposes. They protect royal revenue, discourage smuggling, and facilitate accountability. The bureaucracy surrounding the treasure fleets reflects the importance of their mission. The ships themselves deserve attention as well. Imagine walking along a dock beside a massive Spanish galleon preparing for departure. Towering above smaller vessels, the ship combines cargo capacity with defensive capability. Thick wooden hulls provide strength. Multiple decks accommodate crew, passengers, supplies, and goods. Cannons line gun decks, ready to repel attackers if necessary. Sails rise high above the harbor, promising movement once favorable winds arrive. Such vessels represent some of the most advanced maritime technology of their era. Building and maintaining these ships requires significant resources. Shipyards employ skilled craftsmen specializing in carpentry, rigging, sailmaking, metalwork, and other trades. Timber must be sourced and transported. Equipment requires regular inspection. Repairs are constant because ocean voyages place tremendous strain upon vessels. Every successful crossing reflects not only the efforts of sailors, but also the labor of countless individuals who constructed and maintained the ships. Timing plays a crucial role in fleet operations. Captains and administrators pay close attention to seasonal weather patterns. Atlantic crossings depend heavily upon prevailing winds and ocean currents. Certain routes offer advantages during specific times of year. Delays can create complications. Departing too early or too late may expose ships to unfavorable conditions. The treasure fleet system, therefore, incorporates environmental knowledge accumulated through generations of maritime experience. The sight must have been extraordinary. Multiple large ships sailing together create an impression of power and purpose. Merchant vessels carrying cargoes travel alongside armed escorts. Coordination is essential because maintaining formation improves security. The ocean ahead is vast, but the fleet does not face it alone. Collective movement provides protection unavailable to isolated ships. The economic significance of these voyages extends far beyond Spain itself. Precious metals entering European markets influence international trade. Coins minted from American silver circulate widely. Merchants use them in transactions spanning continents. Economies adjust to increased availability of precious metals. Historians often describe this period as one of growing global interconnectedness, and the treasure fleets play a central role in that process. Yet success brings challenges. The more valuable the cargoes become, the more attractive they appear to potential adversaries. Rival European powers observe Spain's wealth with interest. Privateers seek opportunities for profit. Pirates watch major shipping routes. Even natural hazards become more consequential because losses involve enormous sums. Every fleet represents both opportunity and vulnerability. Security concerns therefore shape operational decisions continuously. Armed escorts accompany merchant ships. Fortifications protect major ports. Intelligence regarding threats is gathered whenever possible. Captains receive instructions concerning defensive measures. The treasure fleet system evolves not only as a transportation network, but also as a security apparatus designed to safeguard imperial wealth. As midday approaches and the harbor gradually quiets after a fleet's departure, the scale of the undertaking becomes increasingly apparent. Thousands of people contribute to each voyage indirectly or directly. Miners extract precious metals. Administrators maintain records. Laborers load cargoes. Craftsmen build ships. Sailors navigate oceans. Soldiers provide protection. Merchants coordinate trade. The treasure fleets represent the culmination of these collective efforts. Looking out across the Atlantic from the deck of a departing galleon, one can appreciate both the promise and the peril of the journey ahead. The holds below contain wealth accumulated from across an empire. The route ahead crosses one of the world's great oceans. Success will bring fortunes safely to Europe. Failure could scatter treasure across the sea floor forever. For now, however, the system appears strong. The fleet sail confidently along routes refined through experience. Their ships are impressive. Their cargoes are valuable. Their organization is remarkable. Yet beyond the horizon lie storms, enemies, and uncertainties capable of transforming prosperity into disaster. The treasure roads of empire have been established, and the ships are underway. Soon we will step aboard one of these great galleons and experience the realities of life at sea during the age of treasure fleets. Part 2. Life aboard a Spanish galleon. The long voyage across the Atlantic. As the sun rises higher above the Atlantic Ocean and a steady wind fills the great sails of a Spanish galleon, we leave the crowded colonial ports behind and step aboard one of the most important ships of the early modern world. The treasure fleets may have carried gold, silver, emeralds, and other valuable cargoes, but they depended entirely upon the people who sailed them across thousands of miles of open water. To understand the story of the lost gold of the Spanish fleet, we must first experience the world of those who lived at sea. Life aboard a Spanish galleon was a mixture of routine and uncertainty, discipline and hardship, beauty and danger. Days were shaped by wind, weather, labor, and the constant rhythm of the ocean. For sailors, soldiers, merchants, priests, officers, and passengers, a voyage across the Atlantic represented both opportunity and risk. The ships themselves were remarkable achievements of engineering, but they were also floating communities where hundreds of people might spend months together while crossing one of the world's largest oceans. Imagine standing upon the deck of a large Spanish galleon shortly after departure from the Americas. The coastline has faded beyond the horizon. Everywhere you look, there is water. The Atlantic stretches endlessly beneath a bright sky, its surface shifting constantly as waves rise and fall. Above, enormous sails capture favorable winds. The ship creaks gently as timbers respond to movement and pressure. Ropes sway, flags flutter. Seabirds occasionally appear, though their numbers decrease as the vessel moves farther from land. The sensation is both exhilarating and humbling. The ocean is vast, and the ship represents a small but determined human presence within it. The galleon itself is a world of complexity. Imagine exploring its decks from bow to stern. Massive masts rise high overhead, supporting an intricate network of ropes, pulleys, and sails. Sailors climb these structures with remarkable skill, often working at considerable heights while balancing upon narrow supports. Every rope serves a purpose. Every sail must be adjusted according to changing conditions. The ship functions as an integrated system requiring constant attention. Small mistakes can have significant consequences, so discipline and experience are highly valued. Life aboard begins before sunrise. Sailors work according to watches, ensuring that responsibilities are maintained continuously throughout day and night. As dawn approaches, crew members already on duty monitor weather conditions, observe sail performance, and maintain course. Others emerge from sleeping areas to begin their own tasks. There is little privacy. Space is limited. Individuals learn to coexist within crowded conditions because the practical demands of maritime travel leave few alternatives. The social structure aboard a galleon reflects broader hierarchies present throughout society. Captains and senior officers occupy positions of authority. Pilots oversee navigation. Sailors handle daily operations. Soldiers provide security. Priests attend to spiritual needs. Merchants may travel with cargoes in which they hold financial interests. Passengers include officials, settlers, and others moving between continents. Each group possesses distinct responsibilities, yet all depend upon one another for a successful voyage. Meals provide moments of routine within an otherwise demanding environment. Imagine sailors gathering around simple food prepared using ingredients capable of surviving long journeys. Fresh supplies are valuable but limited. As voyages progress, preserved foods become increasingly important. Bread, dried meats, legumes, oil, and wine form common components of shipboard diets. Conditions vary according to rank and resources. Officers often enjoy somewhat better accommodations and provisions than ordinary crew members. Nevertheless, everyone must adapt to the realities of life at sea. Water management remains a constant concern. Fresh water is stored carefully because resupply opportunities are limited once a ship leaves port. Barrels occupy valuable space within the vessel. Their contents are monitored because contamination or shortages could create serious problems. Maritime history contains many examples of voyages complicated by difficulties involving water and provisions. Experienced captains understand the importance of planning accordingly. Navigation occupies a central role in daily operations. Long before satellite systems and electronic instruments, mariners relied upon observation, mathematics, experience, and specialized tools. Imagine the ship's pilot standing upon the deck with a navigational instrument, measuring the position of the sun or stars. These observations help determine location and guide decisions regarding course. Charts, compasses, and accumulated knowledge contribute additional information. Navigation is both science and art, requiring skill developed through years of practice. Weather influences nearly every aspect of life aboard. Calm conditions may create pleasant days characterized by steady progress and routine activity. Yet the Atlantic is rarely predictable for long. Winds shift, clouds gather, seas become rough. Sailors remain attentive because changing weather demands immediate responses. Sails must be adjusted, equipment secured, courses modified if necessary. The ability to adapt quickly often determines whether a voyage proceeds safely. Despite challenges, life at sea also includes moments of beauty. Imagine standing upon the deck at sunset while golden light reflects across endless water. Flying fish skim the surface. Dolphins occasionally accompany the ship. At night, stars fill the sky with extraordinary clarity. Far from urban lights, the heavens appear brilliant and expansive. Many sailors develop deep appreciation for such sights because they provide contrast to the hardships of maritime life. Yet uncertainty remains ever present. Every person aboard understands that oceans contain risks beyond human control. Storms may appear suddenly. Equipment can fail. Illness may spread. Navigational errors are possible. The treasure carried below deck adds another dimension to these concerns. Gold and silver represent wealth, but they also create pressure. The cargo must reach its destination safely. Expectations are high. Failure could produce significant consequences for individuals and institutions alike. The psychological experience of crossing the Atlantic should not be overlooked. Weeks may pass without sight of land. Daily routines become repetitive. Conversations, work, and observation of the sea dominate life. Some individuals adapt easily. Others struggle with isolation and monotony. Maintaining morale, therefore, becomes important. Music, storytelling, religious observances, and social interaction help create a sense of community within the floating world of the galleon. As the day progresses and the ship continues west to east across the ocean, one begins to appreciate the extraordinary nature of these voyages. Every crossing represents a triumph of organization, skill, and perseverance. Hundreds of people cooperate within confined spaces while confronting an environment capable of producing sudden challenges. The treasure fleet system depends not only upon ships and cargoes, but upon the human beings who dedicate their lives to maritime travel. Their experiences transform abstract discussions of trade and empire into personal stories unfolding beneath sails and stars. As afternoon sunlight spreads across the Atlantic and the great Spanish galleon continues its steady journey toward Europe, life aboard settles into rhythms shaped by routine, responsibility, and the ever-changing moods of the sea. The voyage may last weeks or even months depending upon winds, weather, and circumstances encountered along the route. During that time, the ship becomes an entire world unto itself. The people aboard cannot simply step ashore when difficulties arise. Every challenge must be addressed using the resources available. Every success depends upon cooperation, experience, and adaptability. The Atlantic crossing therefore tests not only ships, but also the endurance and character of those who sail them. Imagine descending below deck into the interior spaces of the galleon. Here, away from sunlight and fresh ocean air, a different environment exists. Lanterns provide illumination. Wooden beams support the vessel structure. Cargo is secured carefully to prevent shifting during rough seas. Chests filled with silver coins, bars of precious metal, crates of goods, barrels of provisions, and countless other items occupy designated areas. Guards may monitor particularly valuable shipments because the cargo represents immense wealth. The atmosphere is often crowded, warm, and filled with the scents of wood, salt, food, and human activity. The treasure itself rarely appears as glittering piles of gold scattered openly across the ship. Reality is more practical. Wealth is packaged, documented, and secured. Silver, which often exceeds gold in quantity, occupies significant storage space because of its weight. Every chest, barrel, and container must be accounted for. Administrative records accompany cargoes throughout the voyage. The treasure fleet system relies upon organization as much as maritime skill. Above deck, sailors remain busy throughout the day. Ships of this era require constant maintenance. Ropes fray, sails develop wear, equipment demands inspection. Salt water affects nearly everything. Imagine a group of sailors repairing rigging while others scrub decks or check supplies. These tasks may appear mundane, yet they contribute directly to safety and efficiency. Neglecting maintenance can transform minor problems into serious hazards. Health represents another ongoing concern. Long voyages place strain upon crews and passengers alike. Fresh food becomes scarce as weeks pass. Physical labor remains demanding. Illness can spread within confined spaces. Medical knowledge is limited by modern standards, though ship surgeons and practical remedies provide some assistance. Captains therefore pay attention to sanitation, provisions, and discipline because maintaining a healthy crew supports successful navigation and operation. Religious practices occupy an important place in shipboard life. Imagine a priest leading prayers upon the deck as sailors, soldiers, and passengers gather briefly. Many individuals view the ocean with a mixture of respect and apprehension. Storms, accidents, and uncertainties remind them of forces beyond human control. Religious observances provide comfort, structure, and a sense of shared purpose. They also reflect broader cultural values shaping life throughout the Spanish Empire. As days become weeks, relationships develop among those aboard. Friendships form. Conversations repeat. Stories are exchanged. People learn one another's habits and personalities. Shared experiences create bonds because everyone faces the same environment. Yet tensions occasionally arise as well. Crowded conditions, limited privacy, and prolonged confinement can generate disagreements. Effective leadership helps manage such challenges, ensuring that conflicts do not interfere with operations. Navigation continues without interruption. Each day, officers and pilots gather information regarding position and progress. Imagine the captain reviewing charts while discussing conditions with experienced mariners. Decisions concerning route adjustments may depend upon winds, currents, and observations. Atlantic crossings often utilize established patterns reflecting accumulated knowledge of ocean geography. Mariners understand that certain routes offer advantages at particular times of year. This environmental knowledge becomes one of the most valuable assets within the treasure fleet system. The sea itself provides constant reminders of nature's power. Some days are calm and pleasant. The ship moves smoothly across gentle swells beneath clear skies. On such occasions, passengers may spend time observing the horizon or enjoying fresh air on deck. Other days bring rougher conditions. Strong winds increase wave height. Rain reduces visibility. The ship pitches and rolls. Work becomes more difficult. Experienced sailors adapt, but discomfort remains unavoidable. Night introduces its own atmosphere. Imagine standing watch beneath a sky filled with stars. The ocean reflects moonlight. The sounds of the ship become more noticeable. Creaking timbers, snapping sails, water moving along the hull. Darkness extends in every direction. Such moments encourage reflection because the scale of the environment becomes especially apparent. Sailors often develop deep familiarity with celestial patterns because stars assist navigation and provide companionship during long watches. The treasure fleet rarely travels entirely alone. Multiple vessels sailing together create opportunities for communication and mutual support. Ships exchange signals. Captains coordinate movements. Escorts maintain vigilance against potential threats. The presence of other vessels offers reassurance because isolation increases vulnerability. Fleet organization therefore serves both practical and psychological functions. Yet despite all preparations, uncertainty remains inseparable from ocean travel. Every person aboard understands that circumstances can change unexpectedly. A sudden storm may appear beyond the horizon. Equipment may fail at inconvenient moments. Unknown vessels may be sighted. The Atlantic has little regard for human schedules or expectations. Success depends upon readiness, flexibility, and sometimes simple good fortune. Imagine a sunset near the midpoint of the voyage. The ocean glows with shades of orange, red, and gold. The galleon continues steadily eastward, carrying treasure accumulated from across an empire. Beneath the deck lie cargoes capable of influencing economies and financing governments. Above, sailors perform familiar tasks while passengers contemplate the journey ahead. The ship appears strong and confident, a testament to maritime skill and organizational achievement. Yet history teaches us that not every voyage ends safely. The same oceans carrying treasure toward Europe also conceal dangers. Storms wait beyond distant horizons. Rival powers monitor shipping routes. Pirates and privateers seek opportunities. Mechanical failures, navigational errors, and environmental hazards remain possibilities. The wealth aboard these vessels attracts attention, and protecting it requires constant vigilance. As evening approaches and the fleet continues across open water, we gain deeper appreciation for the challenges faced by those who transported imperial wealth across the Atlantic. Their world was one of routine and risk existing side by side. The treasure roads of empire depended upon their labor, courage, and expertise. Soon we will explore the threats confronting these voyages and discover why Spain devoted so much effort to defending its precious cargoes from enemies, both human and natural. Part 3: Pirates, Privateers, and Ocean Dangers, Protecting the King's Treasure. As the sun begins to descend toward the western horizon and the treasure fleet continues its long journey across the Atlantic Ocean, a new awareness settles over the ships. Beneath the decks lie fortunes measured in gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, and valuable goods gathered from across the Spanish Empire. Every sailor, officer, merchant, and soldier aboard understands that this wealth is not merely cargo. It represents royal revenue, private investment, imperial ambition, and years of labor from mines, plantations, workshops, and ports spread across continents. Such riches attract attention, and wherever great wealth travels, dangers inevitably follow. The ocean itself presents enough challenges through storms, currents, and navigational hazards. Yet the treasure fleets must also contend with another threat: human ambition. Pirates, privateers, rival empires, smugglers, and opportunists all recognize the extraordinary value carried aboard Spanish ships. As a result, the history of the treasure fleets becomes not only a story of commerce and exploration, but also one of defense, pursuit, conflict, and survival. To understand why Spain invested so heavily in protecting its treasure fleets, we must enter a world where fortunes could be won or lost upon the open sea. Imagine standing upon the deck of a Spanish galleon during the 16th or 17th century and scanning the horizon through a spyglass. The ocean appears calm. White clouds drift across a blue sky. Other vessels within the fleet remain visible in the distance. Yet every unidentified sail sighted upon the horizon commands immediate attention. Ships approaching from afar may be friendly traders, fellow members of the fleet, fishing vessels, or something far more dangerous. Experienced mariners know that appearances can be deceiving. Decisions made during these moments may determine the fate of an entire voyage. The age of treasure fleets coincides with intense competition among European powers. Spain's vast empire and immense wealth attract both admiration and resentment. Nations such as England, France, and the Netherlands seek opportunities to challenge Spanish dominance. Direct warfare occurs periodically, but conflict also extends into maritime commerce. Capturing enemy shipping offers financial and strategic advantages. A single successful attack against a treasure vessel can yield rewards exceeding those available through ordinary trade. This context helps explain the rise of privateers. Unlike pirates, who operate outside recognized legal authority, privateers receive official permission from governments to attack enemy vessels during periods of conflict. Imagine a captain receiving a formal document authorizing operations against Spanish shipping. Such authorization transforms private profit-seeking into an activity considered legitimate by the issuing government. The distinction is significant politically, though Spanish officials and sailors facing attack may perceive little difference between privateers and pirates. Some privateers become famous throughout Europe and the Americas. Their exploits capture public imagination because they combine adventure, danger, and enormous potential rewards. Successful captures bring wealth, prestige, and influence. Yet from the perspective of the treasure fleets, these individuals represent persistent threats requiring constant vigilance. Every voyage must account for the possibility of interception. Piracy presents a different but equally serious challenge. Imagine small, fast vessels operating in strategic locations near shipping routes. Their crews possess detailed knowledge of local waters and maritime practices. Pirates seek valuable cargoes because concentrated wealth offers opportunities for rapid enrichment. Treasure ships naturally attract attention. Although heavily armed galleons are formidable opponents, isolated vessels or poorly defended targets remain vulnerable under certain circumstances. The Caribbean Sea becomes particularly important within this story. Its islands, channels, and coastal regions create complex maritime environments. Merchant vessels traveling between colonial ports often pass through areas where pirates and privateers may operate. Geography therefore influences security planning significantly. Captains study routes carefully, balancing efficiency against risk. Certain waters acquire reputations for danger, while others offer relative safety. Spain responds to these threats through organization and force. The treasure fleet system itself functions partly as a defensive measure. Imagine multiple merchant vessels sailing together under protection provided by armed escorts. Concentrating ships reduces vulnerability because attackers must confront coordinated resistance rather than isolated targets. Large fleets also benefit from shared resources, communication, and mutual support. The strategy reflects recognition that collective security often exceeds individual capability. The ships protecting the treasure fleets are impressive in their own right. Armed with cannons and manned by trained crews, they serve as floating fortresses. Imagine rows of artillery lining gun decks beneath towering sails. Soldiers and sailors prepare for potential engagements through training and discipline. Weapons require maintenance. Ammunition must be stored carefully. Readiness becomes a constant priority because threats may emerge with limited warning. Life aboard these armed vessels differs somewhat from that experienced on ordinary merchant ships. Military responsibilities shape daily routines. Drills familiarize crews with procedures. Officers monitor readiness. Lookouts remain alert for suspicious activity. The presence of valuable cargoes heightens awareness because failure carries significant consequences. Every successful voyage, therefore, represents not only a commercial achievement, but also a security accomplishment. Yet human adversaries are only part of the equation. The ocean itself often proves more dangerous than pirates or privateers. Storms possess the ability to destroy ships regardless of armament or preparation. Imagine dark clouds gathering rapidly across the horizon. Winds strengthen. Waves increase in height. Visibility deteriorates. Under such conditions, even the most powerful fleet may struggle to maintain cohesion. Ships become separated. Communication becomes difficult. Navigational challenges multiply. Nature recognizes no political boundaries and grants no exemptions to treasure fleets. Navigational hazards create additional concerns. Reefs, shoals, and poorly charted coastlines threaten vessels approaching unfamiliar waters. Imagine a captain guiding a heavily laden galleon through narrow channels while relying upon charts, experience, and observation. Small errors can produce catastrophic results. Groundings may damage hulls, delay voyages, or expose ships to further dangers. Maritime history contains numerous examples of valuable cargoes lost because ships encountered hazards hidden beneath the surface. Disease also remains a persistent threat. Long voyages create environments where illness can spread rapidly. Crews weakened by sickness may struggle to perform essential duties. Reduced manpower affects navigation, maintenance, and defense. Captains therefore worry about health as well as weather and enemies. Protecting a treasure fleet involves safeguarding people as much as cargo. As afternoon sunlight reflects from the ocean and the fleet continues its journey, the complexity of the challenge becomes apparent. Spain is not merely transporting precious metals. It is moving wealth through environments shaped by competition, uncertainty, and natural forces. Success requires coordination among sailors, soldiers, administrators, shipbuilders, navigators, and countless others. The treasure fleets become symbols of imperial power precisely because they overcome such obstacles repeatedly. Yet the dangers never disappear entirely. Every voyage carries risk. Every horizon may conceal opportunity or threat. Every storm cloud invites concern. The wealth resting within the holds of these ships inspires ambition among friends and enemies alike. Protecting it demands constant vigilance and considerable resources. For generations, the system succeeds remarkably well. But even the strongest defenses cannot guarantee safety forever, and history will eventually reveal moments when the sea claims treasure despite every precaution. As evening approaches and long shadows stretch across the decks of the treasure fleet, the realities of maritime security become even more apparent. The Atlantic Ocean may seem peaceful beneath a golden sunset, but those responsible for protecting Spain's wealth know that appearances often conceal deeper challenges. Generations of experience have taught captains, admirals, merchants, and royal officials that successful transportation of treasure depends upon preparation as much as courage. The fleets crossing between the Americas and Europe represent some of the most valuable moving targets in the world. Their cargoes can influence economies, finance military campaigns, and support imperial administration. Consequently, protecting these voyages becomes one of the most important responsibilities within the Spanish maritime system. Imagine a fleet commander reviewing reports while standing aboard his flagship. Around him, multiple vessels maintain formation as they move steadily across open water. Each ship carries cargoes of varying value. Some transport silver bars and coins. Others contain gold, emeralds, pearls, luxury goods, or administrative records. The commander must think not only about his own vessel, but about the safety of the entire fleet. Weather conditions, navigational challenges, crew readiness, and potential threats all require continuous attention. Leadership in such circumstances demands both strategic thinking and practical experience. Communication between ships plays a vital role. Long before modern radios, fleets rely upon visual signals. Flags, lanterns, cannon shots, and other methods convey instructions. Imagine sailors watching carefully for signals from nearby vessels. A change in course, warning of danger, or request for assistance may arrive through these systems. Effective communication helps maintain coordination, especially during difficult conditions when confusion could prove costly. Training contributes significantly to fleet security. Crews cannot simply react to emergencies without preparation. Sailors practice handling sails under varying conditions. Soldiers drill with weapons. Officers study navigation and command procedures. Imagine a cannon crew rehearsing its tasks repeatedly until each movement becomes familiar. Such preparation reduces uncertainty during actual crises. The treasure fleet system depends upon professionalism developed through experience and reinforced through routine. The presence of armed escorts often deters potential attackers before conflict begins. Pirates and privateers generally prefer opportunities offering favorable chances of success. A well-defended convoy presents formidable challenges. Imagine an enemy captain observing a treasure fleet from a distance through a spyglass. He sees multiple armed vessels maintaining formation, their cannons ready and crews alert. Even if valuable cargoes are present, the risks of attack may outweigh potential rewards. Deterrence, therefore, becomes an important component of defense. Nevertheless, confrontations do occur. Maritime history includes numerous engagements involving treasure ships, escorts, privateers, and naval forces. Imagine two groups of vessels maneuvering across open water while captains assess wind direction, ship positions, and tactical options. Naval warfare during the age of sail requires skill, coordination, and favorable circumstances. Outcomes depend upon many factors including weather, crew experience, armament, and leadership. Victory is never guaranteed. Yet despite occasional human conflicts, historians often note that natural forces account for many of the greatest losses suffered by treasure fleets. Hurricanes, in particular, inspire considerable fear. Imagine experienced sailors observing subtle changes in weather patterns while crossing tropical waters. The air feels different. clouds develop unusual formations. Winds shift unexpectedly. Knowledge passed through generations helps identify warning signs, but forecasting remains limited. Once a major storm develops, avoiding it may prove impossible. The Caribbean and Atlantic regions traversed by treasure fleets experience seasonal hurricanes capable of extraordinary destruction. Powerful winds tear sails apart. Waves overwhelm decks. Visibility disappears beneath rain and spray. Ships struggle to maintain control. Fleets become scattered. Anchors fail. Hulls sustain damage. Under such conditions, even the most carefully planned voyage can descend into chaos. The sea becomes a force beyond human management. Imagine a treasure fleet encountering severe weather after months of successful travel. Captains issue orders. Sailors work desperately to secure equipment and preserve stability. Passengers pray. Soldiers assist wherever possible. Valuable cargoes resting within the holds suddenly seem insignificant compared to immediate concerns regarding survival. In these moments, priorities shift. Gold and silver matter little if the ship itself cannot remain afloat. The psychological impact of such dangers should not be underestimated. Every person aboard understands the stakes involved. Families await arrivals in distant ports. Investors expect returns. Governments depend upon revenue. Yet individuals facing storms, illness, or conflict experience concerns that are far more personal. Survival becomes paramount. The treasure fleet system succeeds because countless people repeatedly confront these realities and continue their work despite uncertainty. Over time, Spain develops extensive knowledge regarding routes, seasons, and risks. Experience accumulates through generations. Lessons learned from previous voyages influence future decisions. Certain harbors become important refuges during emergencies. Specific routes gain reputations for relative safety. Administrative procedures evolve to address recurring challenges. The treasure fleets therefore represent adaptive systems responding continuously to changing circumstances. As the sun approaches the horizon and the ocean glows with warm light, one can appreciate the remarkable achievement represented by these voyages. Moving enormous quantities of wealth across thousands of miles of ocean is never simple. Success depends upon cooperation among miners, merchants, administrators, sailors, soldiers, shipbuilders, navigators, and countless others. It requires knowledge of geography, weather, logistics, and security. The treasure fleet system embodies centuries of accumulated expertise. Yet even the strongest systems possess vulnerabilities. No amount of preparation can eliminate every risk. Storms remain unpredictable. Human judgment is imperfect. Mechanical failures occur. Fortune itself plays a role in maritime history. The wealth carried aboard treasure ships attracts attention not only from enemies, but also from fate. Sometimes voyages end successfully, their cargoes reaching European ports where they influence economies and politics. Other times, events unfold differently. As darkness begins settling across the Atlantic and lanterns appear aboard the ships, the treasure fleet continues its journey through a world of uncertainty. The king's treasure remains protected by armed escorts, disciplined crews, and carefully planned procedures. Confidence is justified because the system has proven effective repeatedly. Yet beyond the horizon, the future remains unwritten. In the years ahead, one particular fleet will encounter a disaster so devastating that its lost cargo will inspire treasure hunters, historians, and dreamers for centuries. The roads of empire have carried wealth safely across oceans many times, but the sea is patient and it remembers no promises. Part 4. The Great Treasure Fleet departs. Gold, silver, and emerald cargoes. As dawn breaks over the Caribbean Sea and warm tropical sunlight spreads across the waters surrounding the Spanish colonies, we arrive at one of the most significant moments in the history of the treasure fleets. For generations, Spain had successfully transported vast quantities of wealth across the Atlantic. Countless voyages had carried silver from mountain mines, gold from distant territories, emeralds from South America, and valuable goods from across a growing global empire. The system was not perfect, but it was remarkably effective. Ships sailed according to established routes, ports bustled with activity, and imperial administrators relied upon the steady movement of treasure to sustain royal finances. Yet in the summer of 1715, a fleet would begin a voyage destined to become one of the most famous maritime disasters in history. The ships preparing to depart carried fortunes beyond ordinary imagination. Their cargoes represented years of accumulated wealth. Merchants, investors, colonial officials, sailors, and members of the Spanish crown all had financial interests tied to the success of the voyage. The fleet appeared strong, experienced, and capable. Few could have imagined that within weeks, much of that wealth would lie scattered beneath the waves, beginning a treasure mystery that would endure for centuries. Imagine arriving at the harbor of Havana in Cuba during the early 18th century. The city serves as one of the most important maritime centers in the Spanish Empire. Its location makes it a natural gathering point for ships preparing to cross the Atlantic. The harbor is crowded with activity. Merchants negotiate contracts. Laborers move cargo through warehouses and onto waiting vessels. Officials inspect manifests and verify records. Sailors repair equipment, load supplies, and prepare for departure. Everywhere there is movement because the arrival and departure of a treasure fleet affects every aspect of local life. The year is 1715, and circumstances have created unusual delays within the treasure system. Political events, warfare, administrative complications, and logistical challenges have prevented some shipments from reaching Europe according to their original schedules. As a result, a large quantity of accumulated treasure now waits for transport. The fleet gathering in Havana carries not only current revenues, but also wealth that has been awaiting shipment for extended periods. This concentration of treasure increases both opportunity and risk. Success will bring enormous rewards. Failure would produce staggering losses. Imagine entering one of the secure warehouses near the harbor. Inside, chests of silver coins are stacked carefully under supervision. Bars of precious metal await loading. Crates containing valuable goods stand beside sealed containers holding emeralds and other luxury items. Officials maintain detailed records because accountability is essential. Every chest, coin, and ingot represents financial value belonging to specific individuals or institutions. Documentation accompanies the treasure through every stage of the process. Silver dominates the cargo in terms of quantity. This should not be surprising. Throughout much of the colonial period, silver extraction from the Americas produced extraordinary amounts of wealth. Imagine countless coins minted from metal originating in distant mountain mines. These coins circulate across continents, supporting trade networks that connect Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Their presence aboard the fleet reflects the global significance of Spanish-American silver production. Gold contributes another layer of value. Though often less abundant than silver by weight, gold possesses tremendous importance economically and symbolically. Chests containing gold coins and objects are loaded alongside silver shipments. Merchants, officials, and investors recognize that these cargoes represent fortunes accumulated through years of effort. The wealth concentrated within the fleet is difficult to comprehend fully because modern audiences often underestimate the scale of imperial commerce. Emeralds add further fascination to the story. Imagine skilled miners extracting brilliant green gemstones from deposits deep within South America. These stones travel through complex trade networks before reaching major ports. Their rarity and beauty make them highly desirable. Carefully packaged and documented, they join the fleet's cargo alongside precious metals and luxury goods. Such treasures contribute to the enduring allure surrounding the 1715 fleet because they evoke images of lost riches resting beneath the sea. The ships selected for the voyage are experienced vessels operating within a well-established system. Imagine walking along the docks and observing them one by one. Large galleons dominate the harbor with their imposing hulls and towering masts. Merchant vessels carry valuable cargoes. Armed escorts provide protection. Crews move purposefully between ship and shore, completing final preparations. The fleet represents the culmination of decades of maritime experience. Its organization reflects confidence born from previous successes. Captains review navigational plans carefully. Atlantic crossings require attention to seasonal weather patterns, prevailing winds, and ocean currents. The route ahead is familiar, yet familiarity never eliminates risk entirely. Experienced mariners understand that oceans remain unpredictable. Weather can change rapidly. Mechanical problems may occur. Human judgment is fallible. Nevertheless, confidence remains high because the fleet possesses capable leadership and follows proven procedures. Imagine the moment of departure. Anchors are raised. Sails unfurl. Ships begin moving from the harbor toward open water. Families, merchants, and officials watch from shore. Some anticipate financial rewards upon the fleet's successful arrival in Europe. Others simply hope for safe passage. The scene is both practical and emotional because maritime voyages always involve uncertainty. Once the ships disappear beyond the horizon, events will unfold beyond direct observation. As the fleet enters the Caribbean and begins its journey, life aboard settles into familiar routines. Sailors perform maintenance. Officers monitor navigation. Guards protect valuable cargoes. Passengers occupy themselves as best they can. The ships move steadily through tropical waters, their holds containing one of the greatest concentrations of wealth ever assembled within a treasure fleet. From a historical perspective, this moment carries special significance because it represents the last period of normality before disaster. Everything appears to be functioning as intended. The treasure has been assembled successfully. The ships are underway. Conditions seem favorable. Few signs suggest impending catastrophe. Yet history often unfolds in precisely this manner. Major disasters rarely announce themselves clearly in advance. They emerge from combinations of circumstances that only become obvious afterward. As sunlight sparkles across the sea and the fleet continues its voyage, confidence remains strong. The treasure roads of empire appear secure. Gold, silver, emeralds, and countless other valuables are moving toward Europe under protection provided by experience, organization, and maritime skill. Yet beyond the horizon, environmental forces are gathering. The Atlantic has carried treasure safely many times before, but it is about to remind the world that even the most sophisticated systems remain vulnerable to the power of nature. As the fleet leaves Havana farther behind and sails northward through warm Atlantic waters, the full scale of the treasure aboard becomes increasingly apparent. Every vessel within the convoy carries cargoes accumulated through years of labor across the Spanish Empire. Miners worked in distant mountains. Merchants coordinated complex transactions. Officials collected taxes and maintained records. Sailors prepared ships for long voyages. The fleet now serves as the final link connecting those efforts to European markets and institutions. Beneath the decks of the ships lies not merely wealth, but the economic lifeblood of an empire. Imagine standing within the hold of one of the fleet's treasure ships as lantern light reflects from stacked chests and secured cargo. The atmosphere is cool and dim compared to the bright deck above. Wooden beams surround carefully organized shipments. Guards periodically inspect storage areas because the value contained within them is extraordinary. Every chest is marked and documented. Every container has a place. The scene resembles a floating treasury moving across the ocean. Historians estimate that the 1715 fleet carried immense quantities of precious metals and valuable goods. While exact figures remain difficult to determine with complete certainty, surviving records reveal cargoes of remarkable scale. Imagine thousands upon thousands of silver coins packed into sturdy containers. Each coin may seem insignificant individually, yet collectively they represent fortunes. Silver serves as the foundation of much international trade during this period. Its movement influences economies across continents. The gold aboard the fleet possesses particular symbolic significance. Gold has fascinated human societies for millennia. Its rarity, beauty, and durability make it a natural store of value. Merchants, monarchs, and investors alike view it as a measure of wealth and security. Imagine opening a chest filled with carefully packed gold coins. The sight would be impressive even today. In the early 18th century, such cargoes represented immense purchasing power capable of influencing political and economic decisions far beyond the ocean. Emeralds contribute another dimension to the fleet's cargo. These gemstones are among the most prized luxury goods produced within the Spanish Empire. Their deep green color and relative rarity make them highly desirable among European elites. Imagine skilled jewelers eventually transforming such stones into ornaments worn by aristocrats and royalty. Yet before reaching those destinations, the gems must survive the Atlantic crossing. Packed carefully within secure containers, they travel alongside precious metals and other valuables. The fleet also carries commercial goods beyond treasure in the narrow sense. Luxury items, agricultural products, and merchandise destined for European markets occupy space within the ships. Such cargoes remind us that the treasure fleet system functions as part of broader economic networks. Wealth moves in many forms. Gold and silver capture imagination most readily, but countless other goods contribute to the prosperity generated by transatlantic commerce. Life aboard continues according to established routines. Imagine sailors adjusting sails beneath a bright tropical sky. Officers consult charts and navigational instruments. Meals are prepared. Watches change according to schedule. The ships move steadily through waters that appear calm and inviting. Dolphins occasionally accompany the fleet. Flying fish skim across the surface. Conditions inspire confidence because they reflect the kinds of circumstances under which many successful voyages have been completed. Yet experienced mariners remain aware of seasonal realities. The timing of the voyage places the fleet within a period associated with increased hurricane activity. Modern meteorology allows us to track storms with remarkable precision, but 18th century sailors possess only limited means of anticipating major weather systems. They rely upon observation, experience, and environmental clues. Some warning signs may appear before a storm, yet accurate long-range forecasting remains impossible. Imagine a captain standing upon the deck during the evening, watching the horizon carefully. The sea remains calm. Stars emerge overhead. Nothing appears unusual. Nevertheless, maritime experience teaches caution. Oceans can change rapidly. A tranquil day offers no guarantee regarding tomorrow's conditions. Such awareness becomes second nature for individuals who spend their lives at sea. The fleet's route reflects generations of accumulated knowledge. Navigators understand prevailing winds and currents. They follow paths proven effective through repeated use. The system has transported treasure successfully many times before. This history contributes to confidence because past experience suggests that careful planning generally produces positive outcomes. Yet reliance upon precedent can sometimes obscure emerging risks. What succeeded previously may not always succeed again. Imagine conversations among merchants and passengers aboard the ships. Some discuss business opportunities awaiting them in Europe. Others speak of family members they hope to see again after long separations. Sailors exchange stories regarding previous voyages. Few focus excessively upon danger because routine familiarity reduces anxiety. The fleet appears strong. The weather seems favorable. Progress continues steadily. From their perspective, the journey resembles many others completed successfully. This sense of normality is important because it highlights the unpredictability of what follows. Historical disasters often become memorable precisely because they interrupt expectations. People rarely anticipate catastrophe during ordinary moments. The 1715 fleet sails with confidence rooted in experience and preparation. Its cargoes are valuable. Its ships are capable. Its crews are experienced. The system appears to be functioning exactly as intended. As days pass, the fleet moves farther from Havana and closer to the routes leading toward Europe. The treasure remains secure within the holds. Officers monitor progress. Sailors perform familiar duties. Passengers dream of destinations beyond the horizon. The Atlantic stretches around them, vast yet seemingly cooperative. Unknown to those aboard, however, environmental forces are already developing elsewhere across the ocean. Warm waters, atmospheric conditions, and seasonal patterns are combining to create one of nature's most powerful phenomena. The fleet cannot see it. The captains cannot predict it accurately. The treasure remains protected from pirates, privateers, and human enemies. Yet the greatest threat does not sail beneath a flag or command a cannon. It forms within the sky and sea themselves. As twilight settles over the Atlantic and lanterns begin glowing aboard the treasure ships, the fleet continues onward carrying one of the greatest concentrations of wealth ever assembled. Gold, silver, emeralds, and dreams of prosperity travel together toward Europe. The voyage appears successful. The treasure roads of empire remain open. But beyond the horizon, a hurricane is gathering strength, and the fate of the fleet is about to change forever. Part 5. Hurricane in the Atlantic. The destruction of the fleet. As the sun rises over the western Atlantic and the treasure fleet continues its northward journey along the coastline of what is now Florida, there is little to suggest that one of the greatest maritime disasters in the history of the Spanish Empire is only days away. The ships move steadily through warm waters beneath skies that appear familiar and manageable. Their holds remain filled with silver coins, gold, emeralds, luxury goods, and countless other valuables destined for Europe. Sailors perform routine maintenance. Officers monitor navigation. Passengers look forward to the successful completion of the voyage. Everything seems to be progressing according to plan. Yet far beyond the immediate horizon, invisible processes are already underway. Warm ocean waters, shifting atmospheric conditions, and seasonal weather patterns are combining to create a force of extraordinary power. The Atlantic Ocean, which has carried treasure fleets safely across vast distances for generations, is preparing to reveal one of its most dangerous characteristics. The threat does not arrive beneath a pirate flag. It does not announce itself through cannon fire or hostile sails. It emerges from nature itself, gathering strength gradually before unleashing destruction upon ships, carrying fortunes beyond imagination. Imagine standing aboard one of the treasure fleet vessels during the first signs of changing weather. At first, the differences seem subtle. Experienced sailors notice small details that others might overlook. The air feels heavier than usual. Winds shift in ways that attract attention. Clouds appear along the horizon, forming patterns that suggest instability. Such observations matter because mariners of this era rely heavily upon direct experience. Without modern forecasting systems, they must interpret environmental clues as accurately as possible. Their knowledge is extensive, built through generations of observation, yet some forces remain difficult to predict. As the hours pass, concern begins growing among officers and navigators. Imagine captains gathering to discuss conditions. The sea remains navigable, but signs of deterioration become increasingly apparent. Winds strengthen. Swells increase in size. The sky develops darker regions where clouds accumulate rapidly. Orders are issued to secure equipment and prepare for rougher weather. Sailors climb rigging to adjust sails. Loose objects are fastened down. Routine gives way to heightened vigilance. The treasure fleet faces a challenge common throughout maritime history. Ships are designed to move through water, yet severe storms can transform the sea into an environment hostile even to the strongest vessels. Imagine standing on deck as waves grow larger and winds become more forceful. The ship begins rolling more noticeably. Spray crosses the deck. Communication becomes more difficult. Sailors move carefully because maintaining balance requires increasing effort. Every action must be performed with greater attention. The storm continues intensifying. By modern standards, we understand that the fleet is encountering a hurricane, one of the most powerful weather systems on Earth. To those aboard, however, the experience unfolds through direct observation rather than scientific classification. Imagine dark clouds spreading across the sky until daylight itself appears diminished. Winds howl through rigging. Rain begins falling with increasing intensity. Visibility decreases. The horizon disappears behind curtains of water and mist. The ocean no longer resembles the calm surface encountered earlier in the voyage. Captains confront difficult decisions. Should they alter course? Attempt to reach shelter? Maintain formation? Each option carries risks. Communication between ships becomes increasingly challenging as weather conditions deteriorate. Imagine signal flags whipping violently in the wind, difficult to see through rain and spray. Distances between vessels become harder to judge. The coordinated structure of the fleet begins facing strains imposed by environmental forces far beyond human control. As night approaches, the situation worsens dramatically. Imagine darkness descending upon a sea already transformed by the storm. Waves rise to extraordinary heights. Winds scream through masts and rigging. Rain falls relentlessly. The ships pitch and roll with alarming force. Water crashes across decks. Sailors struggle to perform essential tasks under conditions of extreme danger. Every movement requires concentration. Every decision carries significance. Within the holds, treasure remains secured, but its weight affects the behavior of the vessels. Heavily laden ships respond differently to rough seas than lightly loaded ones. Captains must balance concerns regarding stability, cargo protection, and overall survival. The fortunes resting below deck suddenly seem secondary to the immediate challenge of keeping ships afloat. Imagine a sailor climbing through darkness and driving rain to adjust rigging high above the deck. The wind threatens to tear him away. The ship moves unpredictably beneath his feet. Yet such tasks remain necessary because sail management can influence survival. Maritime disasters often involve countless acts of courage performed by ordinary individuals responding to extraordinary circumstances. The 1715 fleet is no exception. The hurricane reaches full strength. Modern observers studying historical records can estimate the power involved, but numbers alone cannot capture the experience. Imagine entire walls of water rising from the darkness. The distinction between sea and sky becomes difficult to perceive. Lightning flashes briefly illuminate surrounding chaos. Thunder competes with the roar of wind and waves. Ships designed to cross oceans now struggle simply to remain intact. Formation disintegrates. Vessels become separated. Captains lose sight of one another. The fleet that departed Havana as an organized convoy is transformed into isolated ships fighting individually against overwhelming conditions. Coordination becomes nearly impossible. Survival depends upon seamanship, luck, and structural resilience. Throughout the night, crews labor desperately. Pumps operate continuously as water enters hulls. Damaged sails are cut away. Broken equipment is discarded if necessary. Commands are shouted into the storm. Prayers are offered. Some individuals cling to hope. Others fear the worst. The treasure fleet has encountered many challenges throughout its history, but few compare to the force now unleashed upon it. As dawn finally begins approaching, the storm shows little mercy. The coastline of Florida lies nearby, yet proximity to land does not guarantee safety. In fact, dangerous shorelines, reefs, and shoals may increase risks under such conditions. Captains struggling to maintain control face threats from both sea and land. The ocean has become a battlefield where human skill confronts natural power on unequal terms. The disaster is now unfolding fully. Ships carrying immense wealth are being driven toward destruction. Generations of planning, labor, and organization are colliding with forces capable of overwhelming even the most sophisticated maritime systems. The treasure roads of empire, so reliable for so long, are about to be shattered in a single catastrophic event. As the hurricane continues raging through the darkness and into the following day, the fate of the 1715 treasure fleet becomes increasingly desperate. The ships that only recently sailed confidently from Havana are now scattered across a violent ocean. Communication has largely broken down. Visibility remains poor. Captains struggle to determine their positions. The storm exerts relentless pressure upon hulls, masts, sails, and human endurance. What began as a voyage carrying one of the greatest concentrations of wealth in the Spanish Empire is rapidly transforming into a catastrophe of historic proportions. Imagine standing aboard one of the fleet's galleons during the height of the storm. Every surface is slick with seawater. Waves crash across the deck with tremendous force. Sailors cling to ropes and railings to avoid being swept away. The ship groans as its timbers absorb repeated impacts from towering seas. Years of craftsmanship and maintenance are being tested within a matter of hours. Some structures hold. Others begin failing. The distinction between survival and disaster becomes increasingly narrow. One of the greatest dangers confronting the fleet is loss of control. Under ordinary conditions, experienced navigators can guide ships along carefully planned routes. During a hurricane, however, winds and currents often dictate movement regardless of human intentions. Imagine a captain attempting to steer while enormous waves push the vessel relentlessly toward shore. Commands are issued. The crew responds. Yet the ship continues drifting because natural forces exceed available control. Such moments reveal the limitations of even the most skilled seamanship. The coastline of Florida, which might seem like a refuge under different circumstances, becomes a deadly hazard. Along this stretch of coast lie reefs, shoals, sandbars, and shallow waters capable of destroying vessels driven onto them by powerful seas. Imagine waves carrying a heavily laden treasure ship toward unseen obstacles beneath the surface. Darkness, rain, and spray conceal dangers until it is too late. The result is often sudden and catastrophic. One by one, ships begin meeting their fate. Imagine the terrifying moment when a vessel strikes a reef. The impact reverberates throughout the hull. Timbers crack. Water rushes inward. Crew members realize immediately that the situation has become critical. Pumps may slow flooding temporarily, but severe structural damage often leaves little hope. The ocean enters the ship faster than it can be removed. Chaos follows as individuals attempt to save themselves and others. Some ships are driven directly onto beaches or shallow coastal areas. Others break apart offshore. Imagine masts snapping under extreme stress. Sails tear loose and disappear into the storm. Hulls fracture as waves pound them repeatedly against reefs and sandbars. Cargo shifts within holds. Precious metals that once symbolized prosperity now contribute additional weight to vessels already struggling against overwhelming conditions. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes unfold. The disaster is not limited to a single ship. Multiple vessels encounter destruction within the same general region. The scale of losses becomes extraordinary. Imagine treasure chests breaking free as structures collapse around them. Silver coins scatter across flooded compartments. Gold, emeralds, and valuable goods disappear into turbulent water. Wealth accumulated through years of effort begins sinking toward the ocean floor. For the people aboard, however, treasure quickly becomes irrelevant. Survival dominates every thought. Imagine sailors, soldiers, passengers, and officers struggling through darkness and violent seas, searching for any possibility of reaching safety. Some cling to floating debris. Others attempt to swim through dangerous surf. Many are carried toward shore by waves. Others vanish beneath the water. The hurricane shows little regard for rank, wealth, or experience. Dawn eventually reveals the magnitude of the disaster. Imagine survivors standing along the Florida coastline after enduring one of the most terrifying nights of their lives. Behind them lies a landscape of wreckage. Pieces of ships are scattered across beaches and shallow waters. Masts protrude from the sea. Debris floats among breaking waves. The fleet that departed Havana carrying immense treasure has effectively ceased to exist. Historical records indicate that 11 ships were lost during the catastrophe. The destruction extends across a significant stretch of coastline. The exact locations of individual wrecks vary, but together they form one of the most famous treasure shipwreck sites in history. The losses are staggering. Thousands of lives are affected directly or indirectly. Vast quantities of precious metals and valuable goods disappear beneath the sea. Imagine the emotional impact upon survivors. Relief at reaching land mixes with grief, shock, and uncertainty. Friends, family members, and colleagues are missing. Supplies are limited. Communication with distant authorities remains difficult. The immediate future is unclear. Yet despite these challenges, survivors understand something important. Enormous amounts of treasure may still be recoverable. Many wrecks lie within relatively shallow waters. The cargo has not vanished entirely. It rests offshore, waiting beneath waves that continue breaking against the coast. News of the disaster spreads gradually through colonial and imperial networks. Officials receive reports. Merchants calculate losses. Governments assess implications. The destruction of the fleet represents not merely a maritime tragedy, but also a major economic event. The cargoes aboard the ships were intended to support trade, administration, and financial obligations extending across the Spanish Empire. Their loss creates significant consequences. Yet the story does not end with the hurricane. In many ways, it is only beginning. The ocean has claimed ships and treasure, but it has not concealed them completely. Survivors know roughly where wrecks occurred. Valuable cargoes remain within reach, at least in theory. Recovery efforts will begin almost immediately. Divers, sailors, officials, and laborers will return to the disaster zone searching for silver, gold, emeralds, and anything else that can be salvaged. As the storm finally moves away and calmer conditions gradually return, the Florida coast bears witness to one of the greatest treasure losses in maritime history. The sea floor now contains fortunes beyond imagination. Some will be recovered. Much will remain lost. And over the centuries that follow, treasure hunters, archaeologists, historians, and dreamers will continue searching for the wealth scattered during those terrible days of 1715. The hurricane has destroyed the fleet, but it has also created a legend that will endure for generations. Part 6: Survivors on the Florida Coast, Immediate Recovery Efforts. As the first clear morning arrives after the hurricane and sunlight breaks through clouds that had dominated the sky for days, the survivors of the 1715 treasure fleet begin to understand the full scale of the catastrophe surrounding them. The storm has passed, but its consequences remain everywhere. Along the eastern coast of Florida, wreckage stretches across miles of shoreline. Broken timbers lie scattered upon beaches. Pieces of rigging are tangled among dunes and coastal vegetation. Cargo containers, barrels, and fragments of personal belongings wash ashore with the waves. Out beyond the surf, the remains of once proud treasure ships rest beneath shallow waters. Only days earlier, these vessels carried immense wealth across the Atlantic as part of a carefully organized fleet. Now they are shattered remnants of a maritime disaster that ranks among the greatest in Spanish history. Yet amid destruction, uncertainty, and grief, another reality becomes increasingly apparent. The treasure itself has not vanished completely. Much of it still lies offshore. Gold, silver, emeralds, and countless other valuables remain scattered among wreck sites waiting beneath the sea. The immediate challenge facing survivors is therefore twofold. They must ensure their own survival while also beginning efforts to recover the wealth lost during the hurricane. Imagine standing upon the Florida shoreline shortly after sunrise. The air feels different from the storm-filled days that preceded it. Gentle waves now move across waters that recently rose with terrifying force. The contrast is striking. Nature appears calm once again, yet evidence of violence remains everywhere. Survivors gather in small groups, taking stock of their circumstances. Some have lost friends, relatives, or colleagues. Others are injured. Many possess only the clothing they wore during the disaster. Nevertheless, the fact that they survived at all seems remarkable. The coastline where the fleet was wrecked is not heavily populated by Europeans during this period. Resources are limited. Established settlements capable of providing immediate assistance are relatively distant. Imagine survivors searching beaches for useful materials washed ashore from the wrecks. Barrels containing food may prove invaluable. Tools, weapons, and supplies become precious assets. Every recovered item contributes to survival. Maritime disasters often transform ordinary objects into necessities because infrastructure disappears alongside ships. Spanish officers quickly recognized the importance of organization. Imagine experienced administrators and military personnel attempting to restore order amid chaos. Lists of survivors are compiled whenever possible. Temporary camps are established. Guards are assigned. Communication systems begin functioning again, albeit slowly. Leadership matters enormously because confusion can easily worsen already difficult circumstances. The survivors possess knowledge, skills, and resources that remain valuable despite the disaster. Early observations reveal encouraging possibilities. During periods of calm weather, wreck sites can sometimes be seen beneath clear water. Imagine survivors standing along the shore and observing parts of ships visible offshore. Masts, hull fragments, and debris fields mark locations where treasure vessels met their fate. The ocean has claimed the ships, but it has not concealed them completely. This visibility inspires hope that substantial quantities of cargo might be recovered. News of the disaster begins traveling through Spanish colonial networks. Messengers carry reports to authorities in nearby regions. Imagine the urgency surrounding these communications. Officials must understand the scale of losses, assess available resources, and organize recovery operations. The 1715 fleet represents a major economic asset. Every effort will be made to salvage treasure before environmental conditions or opportunistic individuals complicate matters further. Survivors also face environmental challenges unrelated directly to the wrecks. The Florida coastline presents difficulties of its own. Heat, insects, limited freshwater supplies, and unfamiliar terrain create obstacles. Imagine groups searching for water sources while maintaining camps near the shore. Food supplies require careful management. Medical needs demand attention. The transition from shipboard life to survival on land occurs suddenly and under stressful circumstances. Meanwhile, reports regarding visible treasure begin circulating. Imagine silver coins appearing among debris washed onto beaches. Such discoveries confirm that valuable cargoes remain within reach. Yet they also create concerns regarding security. Precious metals attract attention. Guards become necessary. Records must be maintained. Recovery operations require oversight to ensure accountability. The administrative systems that govern treasure before the disaster now adapt to circumstances following it. The emotional dimension of these efforts deserves attention as well. For many survivors, recovery work is not merely economic. It represents a way of responding to tragedy. Imagine sailors returning to wreck sites where friends and colleagues perished. Every recovered chest, coin, or artifact carries associations extending beyond monetary value. The ships were workplaces, homes, and communities. Their destruction affects individuals personally as well as professionally. As days pass, temporary stability gradually emerges. Camps become more organized. Communication improves. Initial assessments provide clearer understanding of losses. Most importantly, plans for systematic salvage operations begin taking shape. Spain possesses extensive experience managing maritime logistics, and those skills now focus upon recovery rather than transportation. The goal is ambitious. Retrieve as much treasure as possible from the wrecked fleet before conditions change. Looking out across the calm waters where the ships once sailed, one can appreciate both the scale of the disaster and the determination of those responding to it. The hurricane has destroyed vessels, scattered cargoes, and altered countless lives. Yet it has not ended the story. Beneath the waves lie fortunes waiting to be recovered. The survivors know it. The Spanish authorities know it. And soon, organized efforts will begin transforming a scene of catastrophe into one of salvage and recovery. As weeks pass following the hurricane and emergency conditions gradually give way to organized operations, the Spanish response to the loss of the 1715 fleet becomes increasingly focused upon recovery. The disaster has created one of the largest concentrations of accessible treasure shipwrecks in maritime history. Unlike vessels lost in deep oceans beyond immediate reach, Many of these wrecks rest within relatively shallow waters along the Florida coast. Their locations are known approximately. Survivors can identify where ships went down. Debris fields remain visible in some areas. These circumstances provide opportunities unavailable in many maritime disasters. The challenge now is transforming opportunity into successful salvage. Imagine a calm morning along the Florida coast several weeks after the hurricane. The sea appears peaceful, almost indifferent to the destruction it recently caused. Small boats move between shore and wreck sites. Workers prepare equipment. Officials supervise activities. What began as a survival situation is evolving into a major logistical operation. Spain is determined to recover as much treasure as possible, and considerable resources are devoted to achieving that goal. The technology available for underwater recovery in the early 18th century differs dramatically from modern capabilities, yet it is more sophisticated than many people realize. Imagine divers preparing to enter the water using techniques developed through generations of maritime experience. Recovery often relies upon free diving in shallow areas where visibility permits identification of valuable cargo. Divers descend repeatedly, locating coins, silver bars, and other objects among wreckage. The work is physically demanding and sometimes dangerous, but potential rewards justify the effort. Conditions play a crucial role in determining success. Imagine clear water one day and rough seas the next. Visibility, currents, weather, and wave action all influence recovery operations. Treasure that appears accessible during calm periods may become difficult to reach when conditions deteriorate. Timing therefore matters enormously. Salvage crews work whenever opportunities arise, aware that delays could reduce chances of success. Silver becomes one of the primary targets because of its abundance within the wrecks. Imagine divers locating chests or concentrations of coins scattered across the seafloor. Recovery teams raise these treasures piece by piece, transporting them back to shore for cataloging and security. Every successful retrieval represents both financial gain and evidence that larger quantities remain below. Reports of recovered silver encourage continued effort. Gold and emeralds receive special attention because of their value and rarity. Imagine the excitement generated when a diver surfaces carrying a small but significant treasure recovered from the wreckage. Such discoveries reinforce belief that substantial fortunes remain recoverable. They also contribute to the legends that will later surround the fleet. Stories of gold and gemstones emerging from the sea capture imagination in ways that ordinary cargo rarely can. Temporary recovery camps grow increasingly sophisticated. Imagine warehouses being established to store salvaged treasure securely. Officials maintain records documenting quantities recovered from specific locations. Guards protect valuable cargoes. Administrative procedures ensure accountability. The operation resembles a reverse version of the original treasure fleet system. Instead of moving wealth from land to ships, workers now move it from wrecks back to shore. Spain's determination reflects the enormous economic importance of the cargo. The losses suffered during the hurricane are substantial, but successful recovery can mitigate some of the damage. Imagine reports arriving in colonial administrative centers detailing quantities of treasure salvaged. Merchants, investors, and government officials follow developments closely because financial interests are directly affected. Every recovered chest represents value restored to circulation. Yet recovery efforts face limitations. Not all treasure is accessible. Some wrecks are more damaged than others. Storms continue affecting conditions. Currents shift cargoes. Sand gradually covers portions of the wreck sites. Imagine divers returning to locations where previously visible objects have disappeared beneath sediment. The ocean remains active, altering the environment continuously. What is recoverable today may become difficult to locate tomorrow. Human factors introduce additional complications. The presence of valuable treasure inevitably attracts attention beyond official recovery teams. Imagine rumors spreading regarding riches scattered along the coast. Opportunists, smugglers, and unauthorized salvagers recognize possibilities. Spanish authorities therefore devote considerable effort to maintaining control over operations. Security becomes essential because the distinction between official recovery and theft can sometimes blur in environments where valuable objects are readily accessible. Despite challenges, the recovery campaign achieves notable successes. Historical accounts indicate that substantial quantities of treasure are salvaged during the years following the disaster. Imagine ships departing the Florida coast carrying recovered silver and other valuables back into imperial circulation. These achievements demonstrate both the effectiveness of Spanish salvage operations and the accessibility of at least some wreck sites. Yet, even the most successful recovery effort cannot retrieve everything. The scale of the disaster is simply too great. Some treasure remains buried beneath sand. Other cargoes become dispersed across wide areas. Certain wrecks prove difficult to access consistently. Environmental conditions conceal valuable objects beyond the reach of contemporary technology. Gradually, it becomes apparent that significant portions of the fleet's wealth will remain lost. This realization carries profound historical implications. The unrecovered treasure does not disappear conceptually. People know it exists somewhere beneath the sea. Records document what the ships carried. Survivors identify general wreck locations. Stories circulate regarding fortunes still resting offshore. The combination of known wealth and incomplete recovery creates conditions ideal for enduring fascination. Imagine standing on the Florida coast years after the disaster. Official salvage operations continue intermittently, yet rumors persist that vast quantities of treasure remain undiscovered. Fishermen occasionally find coins. Storms reveal new artifacts. Local knowledge accumulates through generations. The wreck sites become part of regional memory, their significance preserved through stories and occasional discoveries. What began as a maritime catastrophe is gradually transforming into something else, a treasure legend. The hurricane destroyed the fleet, but it also scattered riches across the ocean floor in ways that future generations will find irresistible. Historians will study the event. Archaeologists will investigate the wrecks. Treasure hunters will search for lost fortunes. And centuries later, people will still dream about the gold, silver, and emeralds that slipped beyond recovery during those terrible days of 1715. The immediate recovery efforts have salvaged much, but they have also confirmed an enduring truth. A great deal of treasure remains missing. Somewhere beneath the waves, scattered among reefs, sandbars, and forgotten wreckage, the lost wealth of the Spanish fleet continues waiting. Part 7. Treasure Hunters Through the Centuries. Shipwreck Archaeology. As the years following the disaster gradually become decades and the decades become centuries, the story of the 1715 Spanish treasure fleet begins a remarkable transformation. What was once a contemporary tragedy slowly enters the realm of history, legend, and enduring fascination. The survivors age and pass away. Official reports are stored in archives. The Spanish Empire itself changes over time. Yet one element of the story refuses to disappear. Somewhere beneath the waters off the coast of Florida, significant quantities of treasure remain unrecovered. Gold, silver, emeralds, jewelry, and countless artifacts continue resting among the remains of the wrecked fleet. The ocean has concealed them, but it has not erased knowledge of their existence. As a result, generation after generation becomes captivated by the possibility of finding what was lost. The search for the treasure of the 1715 fleet evolves into one of the longest and most famous treasure hunts in history, attracting explorers, divers, entrepreneurs, historians, adventurers, and dreamers from around the world. Yet before modern technology and scientific archaeology entered the picture, the pursuit of lost treasure followed a very different path. Imagine standing on the Florida coastline during the middle of the 18th century, several decades after the hurricane destroyed the fleet. The dramatic events of 1715 remain within living memory for some individuals. Stories circulate among coastal communities, sailors, merchants, and fishermen. People know that treasure ships were wrecked nearby. They know that official salvage operations recovered significant wealth. They also know that much remained behind. Every storm that strikes the coast raises new possibilities. Powerful waves shift sand and expose previously hidden objects. Coins occasionally appear on beaches. Pieces of wreckage wash ashore. These discoveries reinforce a belief that more treasure lies waiting offshore. Early treasure hunters operate under difficult conditions. Imagine individuals launching small boats into coastal waters armed with little more than determination, local knowledge, and basic diving skills. Their understanding of the sea floor is limited. Navigation technology remains relatively simple. Visibility underwater varies considerably, yet the prospect of finding even a small quantity of treasure provides strong motivation. A single gold coin or silver artifact can represent substantial value. As a result, stories of discoveries spread quickly. The legend grows with each passing generation. Imagine families sharing stories about treasure hidden beneath the waves. Children hear tales of Spanish galleons carrying immense fortunes. Fishermen describe unusual objects caught in nets. Coastal residents search beaches after storms, hoping to find evidence of the fleet. The wrecks become part of local culture. They are no longer merely historical events. They are mysteries embedded within the landscape itself. During the 19th century, technological changes begin influencing treasure hunting efforts. Improvements in diving equipment create new possibilities. Imagine early divers descending beneath the surface using cumbersome apparatus connected to the world above through hoses and lines. Conditions remain challenging, but access to underwater environments improves gradually. Areas previously difficult to investigate become reachable. Treasure hunters continue searching, driven by the same mixture of curiosity and financial ambition that motivated their predecessors. At the same time, interest in maritime history expands. Scholars begin examining historical records more systematically. Archives preserve documents related to the fleet, including cargo manifests, official reports, correspondence, and maps. Imagine researchers studying these materials by candlelight or within libraries, attempting to reconstruct the events of 1715. Their work contributes valuable information regarding ship locations, cargoes, and recovery efforts. Historical research becomes an important companion to treasure hunting because documents provide clues that may guide future searches. The relationship between history and treasure hunting is complex. Imagine two individuals examining the same shipwreck. One sees financial opportunity. The other sees historical evidence. Both perspectives influence how wrecks are treated. For much of history, treasure hunters focus primarily upon valuable objects. Coins, gold, silver, and gemstones receive greatest attention because they can be sold or displayed. Other artifacts may receive less consideration. Yet over time, attitudes begin changing. The 20th century marks a particularly important turning point. Advances in marine technology transform possibilities for underwater exploration. Imagine vessels equipped with increasingly sophisticated navigation systems, sonar equipment, and diving technologies. Areas once inaccessible become easier to survey. Search efforts expand in scale and ambition. The dream of locating major portions of the lost fleet appears more achievable than ever before. Treasure hunters operating during this era often combine historical research with technological innovation. Imagine teams studying archival documents before launching expeditions. Old maps are compared with modern charts. Accounts written by survivors are analyzed carefully. Weather records, ocean currents, and coastal geography are examined. The search becomes more systematic because information from multiple sources can be integrated. Success depends not only upon luck, but also upon preparation and knowledge. Yet the ocean remains a challenging environment. Centuries of storms, currents, and sediment movement have altered wreck sites significantly. Imagine treasure hunters locating an area where a ship once rested only to discover that much of the wreck lies buried beneath layers of sand. Artifacts may be scattered across wide distances. Environmental conditions change continuously. The sea guards its secrets carefully. Public fascination with the lost treasure continues growing. Newspapers publish stories about discoveries. Books explore the history of the fleet. Documentaries introduce new audiences to the mystery. Imagine readers learning about gold coins recovered from the ocean floor or divers discovering artifacts untouched for centuries. Such reports capture imagination because they connect modern people directly with historical events. The past suddenly feels tangible when an object lost in 1715 emerges from the sea. The treasure fleet also occupies a special place within broader cultural traditions surrounding lost riches. Human beings have always been fascinated by hidden wealth. Stories of buried treasure, lost cities, and forgotten fortunes appear throughout history. The 1715 fleet combines these themes with documented reality. Unlike purely mythical treasures, the cargoes carried by the fleet are known to have existed. Records describe them. Survivors witnessed them. Recovery operations retrieved portions of them. The mystery lies not in whether treasure existed, but in how much remains undiscovered. As the 20th century progresses and search efforts become increasingly sophisticated, a new perspective begins emerging. Historians, archaeologists, and preservationists argue that shipwrecks possess significance extending beyond monetary value. Coins and gold are important, but so are everyday objects, structural remains, and contextual information. Shipwrecks function as time capsules preserving details about maritime life, trade, technology, and culture. This realization sets the stage for a major transformation in how the lost fleet will be studied in the future. The search for treasure is gradually becoming something larger. It is evolving into a search for knowledge as well. As the modern era arrives and scientific methods increasingly influence the study of the past, the wrecks of the 1715 Spanish treasure fleet begin entering a new chapter in their long history. For generations, treasure hunters focused primarily upon recovering valuable objects from the seafloor. Gold coins, silver bars, emeralds, and jewelry attracted most of the attention. Yet historians and archaeologists begin emphasizing a different idea. A shipwreck is not merely a source of treasure. It is a historical site capable of revealing extraordinary information about the people who built, sailed, and relied upon these vessels. This shift in perspective transforms the search for the lost fleet from a purely commercial pursuit into an important field of archaeological investigation. Imagine a team of marine archaeologists preparing for an expedition along Florida's Treasure Coast. Unlike earlier treasure hunters, their goals extend beyond locating precious metals. They seek evidence. Every artifact matters because each object contributes information about the past. A coin may reveal economic connections. A piece of pottery may indicate trade patterns. A section of ship timber may provide insights into construction techniques. Context becomes as important as the objects themselves. The discipline of underwater archaeology develops gradually throughout the 20th century. Imagine researchers adapting archaeological methods originally designed for land-based excavations to underwater environments. The challenges are significant. Visibility may be poor. Currents complicate operations. Sites are often fragile. Artifacts require careful conservation after recovery. Nevertheless, advances in diving technology and scientific methodology make such work increasingly feasible. Surveying a shipwreck site involves meticulous attention to detail. Imagine archaeologists mapping an area of sea floor where wreckage has been located. Measurements are recorded. Photographs are taken. Positions of artifacts are documented carefully. Every object is considered part of a larger puzzle. Removing an artifact without recording its location may destroy valuable information. As a result, archaeological investigations proceed more slowly than treasure recovery operations focused solely upon valuable items. The wrecks of the 1715 fleet prove especially significant because they preserve evidence from a pivotal period in maritime history. Imagine examining the remains of a Spanish galleon resting beneath shallow coastal waters. Its cargo reflects global trade networks. Its construction techniques reveal shipbuilding practices. Personal belongings provide glimpses into daily life aboard treasure ships. Even damaged or fragmentary artifacts contribute knowledge. Together, they create a richer understanding of the past. Coins remain important, but archaeologists study them differently than treasure hunters often do. Imagine recovering a silver coin from a wreck site. Beyond its monetary value, the coin may indicate where and when it was minted. It may reveal trade connections, economic policies, and patterns of circulation. A collection of coins can provide information extending far beyond individual objects. Context transforms treasure into evidence. The same principle applies to other artifacts. Imagine discovering navigational instruments, weapons, tools, ceramics, religious items, clothing accessories, or ship fittings. Each object contributes to a broader picture of life within the Spanish maritime system. Archaeology seeks to reconstruct that picture as accurately as possible. The goal is understanding rather than simply acquisition. Modern technology greatly enhances these efforts. Imagine research vessels equipped with sonar systems capable of mapping the sea floor in remarkable detail. Magnetometers detect buried metal objects. GPS technology allows precise positioning. Diverse and remotely operated equipment investigates sites with increasing efficiency. Areas once difficult to locate become accessible through scientific survey methods. The ocean remains challenging, but it is no longer as mysterious as it once seemed. Despite technological advances, the search remains far from complete. Centuries of storms have altered wreck sites significantly. Sand shifts continuously along the Florida coast. Artifacts become buried and exposed repeatedly. Imagine a storm uncovering objects hidden for decades, only for subsequent conditions to conceal them once again. The environment itself participates in the story, revealing and hiding evidence according to forces beyond human control. Collaboration between archaeologists, historians, and responsible salvors becomes increasingly important. Historical documents guide searches. Archaeological methods preserve information. Technological tools assist discovery. Together, these approaches create a more comprehensive understanding of the fleet than any single perspective could provide. The search for treasure becomes a search for history itself. Public interest remains strong because discoveries continue occurring. Imagine a diver uncovering a cluster of silver coins untouched since 1715. News spreads quickly. Museums display artifacts. Educational programs explain their significance. The connection between present and past becomes tangible. People can look directly at objects that traveled aboard the fleet centuries earlier. Such experiences inspire curiosity and appreciation for history. The wrecks also raise important questions about preservation. Imagine balancing desires for exploration, recovery, education, and conservation. Shipwrecks are finite resources. Once disturbed, certain forms of information may be lost permanently. Archaeologists therefore advocate careful documentation and responsible management. Their goal is ensuring that future generations can continue learning from these sites. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the 1715 fleet is that it continues yielding discoveries after more than 3 centuries. Imagine standing on a beach along Florida's Treasure Coast today. Waves roll toward shore much as they did in 1715. Beneath the water lie remnants of ships that changed history. Some treasures have been recovered. Others remain hidden. Archaeologists continue studying sites. Historians continue examining records. New technologies continue revealing information. The search is ongoing because the fleet represents more than lost wealth. It embodies the intersection of empire, commerce, maritime technology, environmental forces, and human ambition. Every artifact recovered contributes to a deeper understanding of that world. Gold and silver may attract attention initially, but knowledge often becomes the most valuable discovery of all. And yet, despite centuries of searching, a tantalizing reality remains. Much has been found, but much is still missing. Somewhere beneath shifting sands and coastal waters, portions of the lost fleet continue waiting. The question is no longer whether treasure exists. The question is how much remains hidden and what future discoveries may still emerge from the depths of the Atlantic. Part 8. What has been found? What still remains lost? As the morning sun rises over Florida's Treasure Coast, and gentle waves roll across waters that once witnessed one of the greatest maritime disasters in history, we arrive at one of the most fascinating questions surrounding the 1715 Spanish treasure fleet. After more than 3 centuries of searching, diving, excavating, documenting, and exploring, what has actually been found? The answer is both remarkable and surprising. Since the hurricane destroyed the fleet in 1715, thousands of artifacts have emerged from the sea. Gold coins, silver coins, emeralds, jewelry, religious objects, navigational instruments, weapons, ship fittings, and countless other items have been recovered by official salvage operations, archaeologists, divers, and researchers. Yet despite these discoveries, significant portions of the fleet remain missing. The story of the lost treasure is therefore not a simple tale of recovery or loss. It is a story of partial rediscovery, where every new find answers some questions while raising others. The ocean has revealed many of its secrets, but it has not revealed all of them. Imagine standing aboard a modern research vessel positioned above one of the known wreck sites. The sea appears calm and peaceful beneath a bright blue sky. Looking across the surface, it is difficult to imagine that beneath the water lie remnants of ships that sank more than 300 years ago. Yet divers descending into these shallow coastal waters have repeatedly encountered evidence of the fleet. Some discoveries are dramatic. Others seem modest at first glance. Together, however, they create one of the richest collections of treasure fleet artifacts ever recovered from a maritime disaster. The most famous discoveries involve coins. Imagine a diver brushing away sand from a section of the sea floor and seeing the unmistakable shape of a silver coin resting where it has remained for centuries. Such moments continue occurring because storms regularly shift sand deposits along the coast. Objects buried for decades may suddenly become exposed. Coins are among the most recognizable artifacts recovered from the fleet because they connect directly to the economic system that sustained the Spanish Empire. Many bear marks identifying where they were minted and when they entered circulation. Historians can use these details to reconstruct trade patterns and understand the movement of wealth throughout the empire. Silver dominates many discoveries because it dominated the original cargoes. Historical records indicate that enormous quantities of silver were being transported aboard the fleet. Over the centuries, thousands of silver coins have been recovered. Imagine chests breaking apart during the hurricane and their contents spilling across the ocean floor. Waves, currents, and storms gradually disperse these coins across wide areas. Some remain concentrated in clusters. Others have traveled considerable distances from their original locations. Every recovered coin contributes another piece to the puzzle. Gold discoveries often attract even greater public attention. Imagine a diver uncovering a small cache of gold coins untouched since 1715. The excitement generated by such finds is understandable. Gold possesses a unique ability to capture imagination. Its value, beauty, and historical significance combine to create powerful emotional responses. Yet from a research perspective, gold artifacts are important for reasons extending beyond their monetary worth. They provide evidence regarding cargo composition, trade networks, and economic priorities within the Spanish Empire. Emeralds occupy a special place among recovered treasures. These gemstones are closely associated with the wealth of Spanish America. Imagine a green emerald emerging from sediment after centuries beneath the sea. Its appearance links the modern world directly with mining operations, merchants, and trade routes that existed long ago. Such discoveries remind us that the fleet carried not only coins and bullion, but also luxury goods intended for elite markets in Europe. Beyond treasure in the traditional sense, archaeologists have recovered a wide variety of artifacts revealing details about daily life aboard the ships. Imagine examining a navigational instrument once used by a ship's officer. Consider a religious medallion carried by a sailor or passenger. Observe fragments of ceramics, tools, weapons, and personal belongings. These objects may not possess the financial value of gold or silver, yet they often provide richer insights into human experiences. Through them, the people aboard the fleet become more than historical abstractions. They become individuals with routines, beliefs, responsibilities, and aspirations. Shipwreck archaeology has also revealed information about the vessels themselves. Imagine divers documenting sections of hull preserved beneath layers of sand. Construction techniques, materials, and design features offer valuable evidence regarding Spanish shipbuilding practices. Every recovered timber contributes to understanding how these ships were built, maintained, and operated. Such discoveries are especially important because surviving examples of treasure fleet vessels are relatively rare. One of the most remarkable aspects of the 1715 fleet story is the persistence of discoveries. Many people assume that major treasure recoveries occurred only in the distant past. In reality, finds continue into the modern era. Imagine researchers and divers returning to areas explored previously, only to uncover artifacts newly exposed by storms. The coastal environment is dynamic. Sand shifts constantly. Sites evolve. Objects hidden for generations may reappear unexpectedly. This ongoing process ensures that the fleet remains relevant to contemporary exploration and research. Museums throughout Florida and beyond display many recovered artifacts. Imagine walking through an exhibition dedicated to the treasure fleet. Coins, jewelry, weapons, navigational tools, and recovered cargoes are arranged carefully behind glass. Visitors observe objects that spent centuries beneath the sea. Each artifact represents a tangible connection to the events of 1715. Together they tell stories of empire, commerce, disaster, and recovery. Yet despite all these discoveries, a striking reality remains. The treasure recovered so far does not account for everything known to have been aboard the fleet. Historical records describe cargoes of immense value. While substantial quantities have been salvaged over the centuries, significant gaps persist. Researchers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters alike acknowledge that much remains missing. The ocean has yielded extraordinary riches, but it has not surrendered them completely. This incomplete recovery is precisely what sustains ongoing fascination. The question is no longer whether treasure existed. The evidence is overwhelming. Gold, silver, emeralds, and artifacts have been found repeatedly. The real mystery concerns what still lies hidden beneath shifting sands and coastal waters. Every discovery confirms the historical record, while simultaneously hinting at possibilities yet unexplored. The search continues because the story remains unfinished. As afternoon sunlight reflects across the Atlantic and waves continue moving over the wrecked sites of the 1715 fleet, our attention shifts from what has been found to what remains lost. This question has inspired treasure hunters, historians, divers, archaeologists, and dreamers for more than 3 centuries. The documented recovery of enormous quantities of treasure proves that the wrecks contained extraordinary wealth. Yet historical records suggest that a substantial portion of the fleet's cargo never returned to Spain and was never recovered by early salvage operations. Somewhere beneath the waters and sands of Florida's coast, remnants of that lost fortune may still exist. The possibility is both tantalizing and historically significant because it means the story of the fleet remains incomplete even after centuries of investigation. Imagine opening an archival document from the early 18th century. Within its pages are records describing cargoes loaded aboard specific vessels. Quantities of silver, gold, gemstones, and commercial goods are listed carefully because such information mattered enormously to merchants and government officials. Historians compare these records with accounts of recovery efforts conducted after the disaster. The comparison reveals an important fact. While large amounts of treasure were salvaged, not everything documented in the records was accounted for. This discrepancy forms the foundation of the enduring mystery. The ocean itself helps explain why complete recovery proved impossible. Imagine the hurricane scattering cargo across miles of coastline and shallow offshore waters. Chests break apart. Coins spill into sand. Ship structures collapse and bury valuable objects beneath debris. Waves transport materials away from original locations. Over time, natural processes continue altering the landscape. Storm after storm reshapes the seafloor. Sand accumulates over some areas while eroding others. Objects disappear beneath layers of sediment, sometimes becoming deeply buried and difficult to detect. Consider how different the environment looked in 1715 compared to today. Coastlines change gradually through natural processes. Channels shift. Sandbars form and disappear. Vegetation expands or retreats. The wreck sites themselves have been transformed repeatedly by centuries of storms. Imagine a chest of silver coins buried beneath several meters of sand, hidden from view and beyond the reach of early recovery efforts. Such scenarios are entirely plausible given what researchers know about coastal dynamics. Another challenge involves the fragmentation of the wrecks. The fleet did not sink neatly in a single location. Multiple ships were lost across a broad stretch of coastline. Imagine pieces of cargo dispersed among reefs, sandbars, beaches, and offshore areas. Some artifacts remain near original wreck sites. Others traveled considerable distances. The resulting distribution complicates efforts to estimate how much remains undiscovered. Treasure may exist in numerous small concentrations rather than a few large caches. Modern discoveries reinforce this possibility. Imagine a diver locating a cluster of coins in an area previously believed to be thoroughly searched. Such finds occur because environmental conditions reveal objects hidden for decades or centuries. Every new discovery demonstrates that significant artifacts can still emerge unexpectedly. If coins and jewelry continue appearing after more than 300 years, it is reasonable to assume that additional material remains concealed elsewhere. The question of unrecovered gold receives particular attention. Gold represented only part of the fleet's cargo, yet its symbolic importance is enormous. Imagine historians examining records indicating shipments of gold coins and objects aboard specific vessels. Some of those items were recovered, others were not. The possibility that substantial quantities remain lost continues motivating search efforts. Gold's durability enhances this fascination because it survives underwater environments remarkably well. Unlike many materials, it does not deteriorate significantly over time. Emeralds contribute another layer of mystery. These gemstones are small, valuable, and difficult to locate. Imagine how easily they could disappear among sand and debris during a hurricane. Even if large recovery operations succeeded in salvaging significant quantities, individual stones or entire collections might remain hidden. Their size makes them particularly challenging to detect, yet their value ensures continued interest. Shipwreck archaeologists often emphasize that lost does not necessarily mean gone. Imagine an artifact resting beneath the sea floor, preserved but undiscovered. From a historical perspective, it remains part of the archaeological record even if no one has seen it for centuries. Advances in technology continually improve the ability to locate such objects. Sonar systems, magnetometers, underwater mapping techniques, and other tools reveal information unavailable to earlier generations. Areas once considered inaccessible become searchable. This technological progress sustains optimism that future discoveries remain possible. Yet many researchers also recognize that some portions of the fleet may never be found. Imagine treasure scattered so widely by the hurricane that recovery becomes impractical. Consider artifacts buried beneath shifting geological formations or destroyed through environmental processes. History does not guarantee complete preservation. The ocean reveals some secrets while keeping others indefinitely. This uncertainty contributes significantly to the fleet's enduring appeal. There is also a deeper reason why the lost treasure continues fascinating people. The mystery is not solely about wealth. Gold and silver attract attention, but the story resonates because it combines documented history with unanswered questions. We know the ships existed. We know they carried treasure. We know many were wrecked during the hurricane. We know some cargo was recovered and some was not. The remaining uncertainty creates space for imagination while remaining grounded in historical reality. Imagine standing on Florida's Treasure Coast at sunset. Waves roll toward shore just as they did centuries ago. Somewhere offshore lie the remains of ships that once connected continents through trade and empire. Divers continue searching. Archaeologists continue studying. Historians continue examining records. The story remains active because discoveries are still possible. Every storm has the potential to uncover new artifacts. Every expedition may reveal new evidence. What remains lost is therefore more than treasure. It is a collection of unanswered questions waiting beneath the sea. How much wealth still lies undiscovered? Which wreck sites remain only partially explored? What artifacts have yet to emerge from the sand? No one knows with certainty. That uncertainty ensures that the legend of the 1715 fleet endures. 3 centuries after the hurricane, the ocean continues guarding portions of its prize. Much has been found. Much has been learned. Yet enough remains hidden to inspire future generations to keep searching, dreaming, and wondering about the lost gold of the Spanish fleet. Part 9. The Legacy of the Spanish Treasure Fleets. Why the lost gold still fascinates us. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon and golden light spreads across the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, we arrive at the final stage of our journey through the story of the lost gold of the Spanish fleet. We have followed the rise of the treasure fleet system, crossed the Atlantic aboard mighty galleons, witnessed the devastating hurricane of 1715, and explored centuries of recovery efforts and archaeological discoveries. Yet one question remains. Why does this story continue to captivate people more than 300 years after the disaster occurred? Why do the wrecks of the 1715 fleet still inspire treasure hunters, historians, filmmakers, divers, archaeologists, and ordinary dreamers around the world? The answer lies in the remarkable way this story combines history, mystery, exploration, human ambition, and the enduring power of the sea. The lost gold of the Spanish fleet is more than a tale about treasure. It is a story about humanity's relationship with the unknown, our fascination with discovery, and our desire to connect with the past through objects and stories that have survived the passage of centuries. And so, our journey through the story of the lost gold of the Spanish fleet comes to an end. Tonight, we've sailed across the Atlantic during the Age of Empires, followed the treasure roads that connected the Americas to Europe, and witnessed one of the greatest maritime disasters in history. We've stood beside miners extracting silver from distant mountains, walked through crowded colonial ports overflowing with wealth, and boarded the mighty Spanish galleons that carried fortunes across the sea. We've experienced life aboard those remarkable ships, explored the dangers posed by pirates, privateers, and storms, and followed the great treasure fleet of 1715 as it departed Havana carrying enormous cargoes of gold, silver, emeralds, and precious goods. Then we witnessed the devastating hurricane that changed everything. In just a matter of days, ships that represented years of labor and unimaginable wealth were shattered along the Florida coast, scattering treasure across the ocean floor and creating a mystery that would endure for centuries. We've followed the survivors as they struggled along the shoreline, watched the first recovery efforts begin, and explored the generations of treasure hunters, divers, historians, and archaeologists who continued searching for what remained lost. And perhaps most importantly, we've discovered that the true legacy of the fleet is not measured only in gold or silver. It lives on through the stories preserved beneath the waves. Every recovered coin, every emerald, every artifact, and every fragment of shipwreck connects us to real people who crossed vast oceans in search of opportunity, wealth, and a better future. The lost treasure continues to fascinate us because it reminds us that history is never completely finished. There are still questions waiting to be answered. There are still discoveries waiting beneath the sea. And there are still stories hidden within the past, waiting for curious minds to uncover them. If you enjoyed this relaxing journey through maritime history and would like to explore more lost civilizations, forgotten kingdoms, ancient mysteries, treasure legends, shipwrecks, archaeological discoveries, and fascinating stories from the past, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue creating long-form history for sleep adventures designed to help you relax, unwind, and drift peacefully through the pages of history. Thank you for joining me on this voyage. As the waves grow quiet and the stars shine above the endless Atlantic, may your evening be peaceful, your dreams be calm, and your journey through sleep be as gentle as a ship sailing beneath a moonlit sky. Until our next adventure through history, good night, sleep well, and may favorable winds always guide you safely home. Imagine standing on the shore of Florida's Treasure Coast during a calm evening. The waves move gently across the sand. Seabirds glide above the water. The horizon stretches endlessly into the distance. At first glance, the scene appears ordinary. Yet beneath the surface of the ocean lies one of the most famous treasure sites in the world. Somewhere offshore rest fragments of ships that once carried fortunes across the Atlantic. Gold, silver, emeralds, and countless artifacts have already been recovered. Other treasures remain hidden. The awareness of that hidden history changes how we see the landscape. The ocean is no longer merely water. It becomes a vast archive preserving stories from another age. Human beings have always been fascinated by lost things. Ancient legends speak of hidden cities, forgotten kingdoms, buried riches, and mysterious artifacts. Throughout history, people have searched deserts, mountains, forests, and oceans hoping to uncover something valuable or meaningful. The story of the 1715 fleet fits naturally within this tradition. Yet unlike purely mythical treasures, the wealth carried aboard these ships is well documented. We know the fleet existed. We know what it carried. We know where it was lost. The mystery is not whether treasure disappeared. The mystery is how much remains waiting to be found. This combination of certainty and uncertainty gives the story extraordinary power. Imagine hearing about a treasure that may or may not exist. Such stories can be entertaining, but they lack the same impact as a documented historical event. The 1715 fleet is different. Official records, archaeological discoveries, and centuries of recovery efforts confirm the reality of the treasure. Every recovered coin, emerald, and artifact serves as evidence. The existence of the treasure is not speculation. What remains uncertain is the extent of what still lies hidden beneath the sea. The story also reflects broader themes in human history. Consider the immense network required to create the treasure fleet system. Miners extracted silver from mountain deposits. Craftsmen minted coins. Merchants organized trade. Sailors crossed oceans. Officials maintained records. Entire communities participated in economic systems linking continents together. The fleet therefore represents more than wealth. It symbolizes globalization before the modern era, demonstrating how interconnected the world had already become centuries ago. Imagine a single silver coin recovered from a wreck site. At first glance, it appears to be a small object, yet its history may span thousands of miles. The silver might have originated in South America. The coin may have been minted in a colonial city. It could have traveled through multiple ports before being loaded aboard a treasure ship. Its intended destination may have been Europe. The coin embodies a journey connecting people, places, and economies across vast distances. This complexity transforms treasure into historical evidence. The sea plays a central role in the story's enduring appeal. Oceans occupy a unique place within human imagination. They are vast, beautiful, and difficult to control. Even in the modern era, large portions of the ocean remain relatively unexplored. The sea therefore represents both connection and mystery. Ships use it to travel between continents. Yet it also conceals shipwrecks and artifacts beneath its surface. The lost fleet remains fascinating partly because the ocean continues acting as both preserver and guardian of its secrets. The treasure fleet story also appeals because it combines success and failure in equal measure. Spain created one of the most sophisticated maritime transportation systems of its time. For generations, the fleets operated successfully, moving enormous quantities of wealth across the Atlantic. The 1715 disaster therefore highlights the limits of even the most impressive human achievements. Organization, experience, and planning proved insufficient against the force of a major hurricane. This lesson remains relevant because it reminds us that nature retains tremendous power regardless of technological or political accomplishments. Archaeology has added another dimension to the story. Imagine divers recovering artifacts that have rested beneath the sea for centuries. Each discovery creates a direct connection between present and past. Objects once handled by sailors, merchants, officers, and passengers emerge into the modern world. Museums display them. Researchers study them. Visitors observe them. History becomes tangible rather than abstract. The Lost Fleet, therefore, serves as a bridge connecting contemporary audiences with people who lived long ago. Perhaps most importantly, the story encourages curiosity. The existence of unrecovered treasure invites questions. What remains hidden? What discoveries await future generations? Which wreck sites have yet to reveal their secrets? These questions sustain interest because they remain open. The story continues evolving as new evidence emerges. Unlike many historical events, the 1715 fleet still possesses the potential for future discoveries. As the sun moves lower in the sky and long reflections stretch across the ocean, we begin to understand that the lost gold of the Spanish fleet is not merely a story about wealth. It is a story about exploration, resilience, curiosity, and the enduring relationship between humanity and the sea. The treasure matters, but the journey matters even more. It is the combination of history and mystery that keeps the legend alive. As twilight settles over the Atlantic and the final colors of sunset fade into deep shades of blue and gold, our journey through the history of the lost Spanish treasure fleet approaches its conclusion. Yet the legacy of the fleet extends far beyond the hurricane of 1715, the wrecks along Florida's coast, or even the treasure itself. Over the centuries, the story has become something larger than a maritime disaster. It has evolved into a symbol of adventure, exploration, historical discovery, and the enduring human desire to seek what has been lost. The gold and silver scattered across the ocean floor continue to attract attention, but the deeper significance of the fleet lies in what it reveals about history, memory, and our connection to the past. Imagine a modern archaeologist examining a coin recovered from one of the wreck sites. The coin is small enough to fit comfortably in the palm of a hand. Its surface bears marks created centuries ago. To a treasure hunter, it may represent financial value. To a historian, it represents evidence. To a museum visitor, it may inspire wonder. The same object can carry different meanings depending upon perspective. This flexibility helps explain why the story of the fleet appeals to such a wide audience. It contains elements capable of inspiring many different kinds of interest. The fleet also demonstrates how history survives in unexpected ways. Imagine the countless events that occurred during the early 18th century. Most left few traces visible today. Yet the disaster of 1715 preserved a remarkable collection of artifacts beneath the sea. The hurricane that destroyed the fleet inadvertently created an archaeological record. Coins, tools, weapons, jewelry, ship components, and personal belongings remained protected beneath sand and water. Centuries later, These objects continue providing information about the people who lived during that era. There is something uniquely powerful about shipwrecks because they preserve moments in time. A ship often carries a specific collection of objects associated with a particular voyage. When that ship sinks, many of those objects remain together. Imagine opening a time capsule sealed for 300 years. That is essentially what archaeologists experience when investigating well-preserved wreck sites. The 1715 fleet offers rare opportunities to study trade, technology, navigation, religion, economics, and daily life through direct physical evidence. The story also reminds us of the enormous scale of the Spanish Empire and the global systems it helped create. Long before airplanes, container ships, or digital communication, people established networks connecting continents through trade and transportation. Treasure fleets crossed oceans carrying wealth, information, goods, and people. Their voyages required extraordinary coordination. The fact that such systems existed centuries ago challenges assumptions that globalization is purely a modern phenomenon. The fleet serves as evidence of an interconnected world already taking shape during the early modern period. At the same time, the disaster highlights the fragility of human plans. Imagine the confidence that existed when the fleet departed Havana. The ships were experienced. The routes were familiar. The cargo was secured. The organization was extensive. Yet a hurricane altered everything within a matter of days. This contrast between preparation and unpredictability gives the story lasting emotional power. It reminds us that history often turns upon forces beyond human control. The continued search for treasure reflects another enduring aspect of human nature: hope. Imagine generations of divers launching boats into coastal waters, believing they might discover something remarkable. Most searches do not result in dramatic finds, yet the possibility remains. Every recovered artifact proves that discoveries are still possible. Hope motivates exploration, research, and investigation. It encourages people to look beyond what is already known. The ocean contributes significantly to this sense of possibility. Unlike a historical site fully excavated on land, the sea remains dynamic and unpredictable. Storms shift sand. Currents expose hidden objects. New technologies reveal previously inaccessible areas. Imagine an artifact resting beneath sediment for centuries before a storm uncovers it briefly. Such events occur regularly enough to sustain fascination. The ocean continues participating in the story, revealing and concealing evidence according to its own rhythms. The legacy of the fleet also extends into culture and imagination. Books, documentaries, museum exhibits, historical studies, and local traditions all draw inspiration from the wrecks. Imagine children hearing stories about treasure ships while walking along Florida beaches. Imagine divers studying maps and historical records before embarking on expeditions. Imagine researchers analyzing newly recovered artifacts. The story lives because people continue engaging with it in different ways. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the lost treasure is that it remains partly lost. If every coin, emerald, and artifact had been recovered long ago, the story might still interest historians, but much of its mystery would disappear. Instead, uncertainty survives. Historians know a great deal about the fleet, yet not everything. Archaeologists have recovered many artifacts, yet not all. Treasure hunters have achieved notable successes, yet important questions remain unanswered. This balance between knowledge and mystery keeps the narrative alive. As darkness settles over the ocean and stars begin appearing above the horizon, we can appreciate the fleet from a broader perspective. The gold and silver matter because they inspired journeys, economies, and ambitions. Yet the true treasure may be the history preserved through the disaster. The wrecks reveal stories of sailors crossing oceans, merchants building trade networks, explorers navigating unfamiliar waters, and communities connected through commerce. They remind us that history is not merely a collection of dates and events. It is a collection of human experiences. The lost gold of the Spanish fleet continues to fascinate because it exists at the intersection of fact and mystery. We know enough to understand its significance. We do not know enough to remove all uncertainty. Somewhere beneath the waters off Florida's coast, pieces of the story still rest beneath sand and waves. Future generations may discover them, or they may remain hidden indefinitely. Either way, the legend endures. The ships are gone. The empire has changed. The sailors have long since passed into history. Yet the treasure fleet continues sailing through memory, curiosity, and imagination, carried forward by the timeless human desire to explore what lies just beyond the horizon.